How you doing? Long time no see. I'm a little bit nervous to film this video because I can already see the comments. What time do you call this? And the truth is, I can't read a clock. So, welcome to part 2 of my Iron Flame recap. That's right, this book is so long that a 5-hour video wasn't enough. No, hopefully this one is not 5 hours long. How many of you just had a look to see how long this video was? Is it 5 hours? Don't tell me if it is, I don't want to know. I don't really have an excuse as to why this took so long, other than the fact that I wanted a sponsor on it. I'm going to be transparent with you, because just like Violet Sorrengail, the truth is very important to me. Because of just how long these videos take to make, I really don't want to upload them without some kind of guaranteed income. Your girl has to eat. She's got bills to pay. I also had a CFS flare-up for most of March. So I was out of action for a little while. It's a shame I don't have a mender, right? Just to fix me up the minute my disability gets inconvenient for the plot. Anyway, thank you so much for your patience, and thank you so much to Surfshark VPN for sponsoring this part of today's video. Now, if like big government in Iron Flame, you want to keep your data private, you want to keep your secrets on lock, then you should use Surfshark VPN. Surfshark VPN is a virtual private network that encrypts your online data and helps you secure your personal information when you use free public Wi-Fi. Their clean web feature blocks ads, trackers, malware, and phishing attempts, all whilst masking your IP address to help keep you safe. They also don't monitor, track, or store what you do online. That means whatever you're reading on AO3 can remain hidden under the shadowy veils of night. But if you're not actually fussed about being safe, you don't care, you're like Violet Sorrengail throwing caution to the wind, Surfshark can also help you virtually travel the world, helping you access sites, shows, and movies that may be blocked in your country. Well, isn't that lovely? Go to surfshark.com/Ellbat or use code Ellbat at the checkout to get 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN. Thank you so much to Surfshark for sponsoring this part of today's video, and thank you to you for clicking the link in the description down below. I know that's what you just did. It was really cool of you. So thanks for that. Very good. And now that's out of the way, it's time. The Empyrean series, book 2, Iron Flame, part 2. These names are getting too long. Okay, where we left off. I was going to give you a TLDR, but I just remembered last time I did that, the video took 5 hours. So go watch part 1 is my main piece of advice here. Where we left off at the end of part 1, the rebellion has well and truly started. All of the gang, as well as about a third of the school, have now left Basgaeth, and they are now on their way to Orisha. That city that they're rebuilding, which is the base of operations for the rebellion. The rebellion that famously no one was supposed to know about at the beginning of this book, but Violet Blabbermouth Sorrengail over here has now told the entire school. Right. Oh, and she tells the whole school after narrowly escaping death at the hands of now perished Major General Varish, who Dane stabs in an act of complete shock. Dane turns traitor to the state he once loved, for the girl he once loved, So Violet is all beaten up, Dane's on his way to a redemption arc, and Brennan is not chuffed that Violet once more needs to be mended, and he's blaming Xaden. I'm glad to see his brotherly protective instinct has kicked in after, leaving her for dead for the better part of 5 years or so. Glad to see that kicked in eventually. So that takes us to chapter 36. I lied, actually. Sorry. Just like I lied when I said that part 2 would be out soon after part 1. Now, at this point, it's worth mentioning that I may have concealed something from you in Act 1. And I did this because I wanted to mention it now. In chapter 22, so casting your mind back to part 1, Violet has this nightmare. And this nightmare is a big scary Venin man. The chief Venin man, he's scary boy, very scary. Big bad Venin asks her repeatedly to join the Venin. And our girl naturally is like, nah. I believe she says something along the lines of, he calls her disappointing. That one's got a sting. And Violet is like, get away from me, you little weirdo. My ribs tighten around my lungs as terror takes hold, and I force a garbled sound through my throat, but it does nothing to warn Tern and Indarna. There is no escaping me, Ryder, he whispers, his fingers ghosting over my cheek but not quite touching. Fight me and die,
or join me and live beyond the ages. But you will never escape me, not when I have waited centuries for someone with your power.
You! It comes out as a whisper, but I mean it with every bone in my body.
Death it is.
He looks so disappointed as he lowers his hand. Wind howls as I fall to the ground. A scream tears through my body as a wave of agony rolls over my skin and bones, leeching the very essence of my energy until I wake, my heart pounding, my skin clammy, my fingers wrapped around the black hilted dagger. Just a dream. Just a dream. Just a dream. I mean, she said it 3 times, so surely it's just a dream, right? Now, I didn't mention this because at the start of chapter 27, Violet has what is essentially the exact same nightmare. I'm trapped in this nightmare again, but at least I made it further across the sunburned field this time. Of course, again. The Dark Wielder hisses, his face contorting into a sneer.
You will never be free of me. I will hunt you to the ends of the continent and beyond.
I struggle to relax, to calm my heart and change my breathing in hopes of waking myself up. But it's only my mind that knows this isn't real. Basically, Violet is like, yo, you can't get me if I'm behind the wards. And then big scary Chief Venin points out that she is no longer sleeping within the wards. It's going well for number 1 student of the Brainiac Academy, Violet Sorringale. It's worth noting that in this nightmare, she doesn't say the, oh, I'm in this nightmare again out loud. Chief Venin is he's just reading her mind now. Yeah. Lucky for our girl, she wakes up. Where does she wake up? In Orisha, most importantly, in Xaden's bed. That's right. And yes, Brother Brennan has fully mended her. Excellent, lovely. I love when I get tortured for days, but then it all just goes away. It's amazing. Tell you what's even more amazing. Violet and Xaden then have passionate sex. Yes, they do. There's finally some fruity time betwixt our lovers, which to be honest, I'm not mad at this point. I have worked for 340 pages for this. I deserve this, okay? This is a little treat. Obviously for them, it is more than a treat. This is them reaffirming their love because obviously Xaden thought Violet was like, you know. So things are very passionate. I'll give you the highlights, you know. So I'm nothing if not a person at the people. Gods, is he beautiful. And he loves me. He risked his life to free me. Dane and I would have never made it out there alive without him. Alive. I'm alive. And that's exactly how I want to feel. I lean forward and press my lips to his warm skin, kissing the scar closest to me, wishing I could undo the damage my mother did to him. Okay, pause. Maybe don't think about your mum when you're about to get freaky with your boyfriend. Let's leave General Lilith out of this one, yeah? So Violet tries making a move on Xaden. Xaden warns her, okay? He hits her with a, you're not recovered enough for the things I want to do to you. My core clenches at the warning, the promise. Whatever it is, I want it. I want him. Yes, I am. All mended, remember? Pause. This is, of course, a reference to Brother Brennan, which makes our second reference of a family member by Violet Sorringale right before coitus. Heavy side-eye on that one. There's a lot of kind of teasing each other. Xaden hits her with a, you have to stop, or I'm going to lose it on you. His stomach flexes as he lifts his head to watch me. I'm not sure I can be gentle. Sounds excellent to me. I don't want gentle. Okay, you horn dog. The harlot of Orisha. That's what they're going to be calling her after this. Anyway, they finally break off that incredibly tedious, I'm not going to sleep with you until you tell me the truth. No, I'm not going to sleep with you until you realise you don't need the truth thing. Very annoying. We all hated that. Anyway, they finally have their sex. I don't say that like someone who's just never encountered the concept of sex before. Sorry. I'll give you some more quotes, because I know you want it, you little hound dogs. We've got some hands roaming and stroking. We have some incredible abdominals. Me, when I go to the gym. There are fingers wrapping around the length of him. Things that are going to be on the internet forever. Me saying that. Miss Becky does write a very good spicy scene, but we already knew that. I do want to give a special shout out to Rebecca Yaros personally for actually using the word
I'm not sure I can put that in there without it being censored. Most fantasy authors or romantasy authors, they never say what things are. You know, it's a sensitive nub, bundle of nerves. So shout out Miss Becky. She does dead ass just go. And I really respect that. Thank you, Rebecca. I've needed that. And whilst I am grateful to Miss Becky for not putting me through extensively long and unnecessary similes and metaphors for parts of anatomy, the YouTube algorithm is not happy with it, and I will get demonetized if I say it. So I am going to use the fantasy words. Sorry. We have some "you're alive." His voice wraps around my mind as his fingers dip between my thighs and slide over my sensitive parts. Gods, he knew what I needed without me even telling him. That's every woman's dream. That is what it is right there. It's just not having to tell a man what to do. And you're mine. I gasp for breath, my pulse racing as he strokes me right over the edge. Anyway, Violet wants the full force of what he's capable of. She basically wants him feral, is an actual quote. You will tell me if it's too much. This is exactly what I need for him to take me, to consume me, to breathe life into me. I want whatever she's having, honestly. Obviously, they can't have some fruity time without Violet's classic lightning moment, just so that everyone in Orisha knows that, you know, she's reached nirvana. Honestly, the one thing that this book has shown me is that these two would be insufferable to be around, if not for the constant lightning wielding. Right, picture this. You're minding your business. You're walking along the courtyards of Orisha. It's the middle of the day, not a cloud in the sky. Then suddenly, you're struck dead at 22 by a rogue lightning strike caused by Violet Sorrengail's climax. She's a walking health and safety hazard. Anyway, they finish up. You want me to sleep in here with you? Every night. He kisses me softly. You might not be able to ward it yet, but you better sound shield this room today. I lift my brows so he knows I mean it. His mouth curves into a heart-stopping line. Already done. I roll my eyes. Of course it is. Anyway, they finally emerge from the room and there's cadets everywhere. She's ready to be part of the course. It's really giving Deathly Hallows Part 1. Basically, where all the students are like signing up. This is what that is. The problem is that Orisha was not ready for all of these people. So we're in a bit of a sticky situation where Violet has just led hundreds of dragons to a secret hiding spot. I don't know about you, but if I was trying to keep my secret rebel headquarter location a secret, I might not want to lead hundreds of dragons to it. That's just me, I guess. Xaden meets with the council in Orisha. You remember that council that we met at the start of this book? Yeah, he meets with them, and unsurprisingly, they're all pissed because there's a bunch of students running around and nobody knew they were coming. So they've got nothing prepared. There's not enough food. There's not enough anything. The thing they are most upset about is the fact that they are now exposed, and they suspect that General Melgrin now knows of their location and will promptly launch an attack. It's not looking good for Team Rebellion. Xaden then promptly reminds everyone that this is his home and they're in his house. This, by the way, is the second time he has done this chapter already. He says this to Violet. He's like, yeah, this is my house, my bed. It's giving only child, truthfully. Honestly, I don't think you should host a rebellion from your house if you're actually a little bit bitter about it. I feel like if you're going to do that, you have to kind of commit to it and not remind everyone and kind of hold it over their head 24/7. However, I will say that I'm not going to hold this against Mr. Ryerson because he does employ it in a way that I find quite favourable later on. But we'll get to that. Some of you already know what I'm talking about. It's going. Much like Violet Sorrengail this morning. I forgot to mention some things that they also learned during the council meeting, so if you want to just pause to read, I do want to highlight the number 7 here, as this will be important later. Anyway, the meeting ends and Violet feels Endarna wake from her dreamless sleep. It's about bloody time, sis. Violet immediately goes to see Endarna. Do we still remember who Endarna is? Yes, the golden feather tail, who's not really golden anymore. T. Endarna's scales are still black, but now they're like a greeny black, which is, it's very Very hip, very cool. I'm sure. She is also now 2/3 of the size of Sigale. She's also incredibly hangry at this point, and she's really giving teenager vibes, adolescence. You know, when you're in that period where you just give your parents sass for basically no reason other than the fact that they exist, and that pisses you off for some reason. Indana goes off to eat a sheep. Not very vegan of her, but she is a dragon, so. But bad news in Dragon City, because Indana is struggling. Terran then tells Violet that Indana has not developed as a normal dragon would, and that this is likely a consequence of her expending too much energy at Resin and the constant interruptions to her dreamless sleep. Essentially, there are a set of muscles that permit a dragon to fly, and Indana's have not properly developed. He then tells Violet that because of this, it is unlikely that Indana will ever bear a rider. Which is very sad, but if we want to look at this in a slightly more optimistic way, at least Violet now doesn't get accused of playing favourites when she chooses to ride one dragon over the other, because now she doesn't have to worry about it. Also, love to see a little bit of disabled dragon inclusion. I see you, Miss Becky. I like that. I do. Do we think that this is supposed to poetically represent Violet? But probably. It's not entirely subtle. Violet has one incredibly strong, iconic dragon, and one equally iconic and powerful dragon that is physically weaker. So it is very much given Violet, Soren Gale in Fourth Wing. Right, now over the next few chapters, I'm going to give you the opportunity to guess what you think Violet and co end up doing. For a little context, remember, they have just fled Basgiath, become traitors to the state, to join the rebellion. They're now stationed in Rebel HQ. Okay, they're leading a resistance movement. So naturally, what is it that you think this lot end up spending the next few chapters doing? That's right, they fled Death College to join the slightly cooler Rebellion College. Yeah, this is Miss Becky really said education's important. Join the rebellion, but make sure you get your GCSEs first. I'm sorry, what do you mean they put them in classes? She's like literally heading a rebellion at this point, okay? They are facing a war against undying, undead creatures that suck the soul out of the earth. And you want them to go to maths class? I am baffled. What do you mean? Now, to be fair, I understand some of the classes still existing. Like the physical training stuff, the sparring, the flying lessons, all super important, right? Battle brief also still happens and is relevant, topical to the rebellion. But like, these kids are doing history and physics. You're telling me Sir Isaac Newton exists in this world? Guys, they're even still sitting in their Basgiath formations of like wing section squad. They are so Basgiath brain rotted. They're indoctrinated. Someone please free these characters from the grip of this school. But good news is, because not all of the students left Basgiath to come to Basgiath 2.0, they don't have their full formations. So what they've decided in their new little school setup is that they now get to vote on who should be the wing leaders. Hello, democracy. Am I right, ladies? Yeah. Anyway, all of Flame section of the Fourth Wing, they all moved to Orisha. That's right, none of them stayed in that crusty, musty death school over there. No, they all came to this one. The cool new death school. Right. Right. Between classes, Violet has been making progress in translating one of the journals of the original 6 riders. If you remember, these journals and the theft of said journals were the reason why Violet was abducted and tortured towards the end of part 1. The reason they need these journals, of course, is because the first 6 riders activated the Wardstone at Basgiath. So the secret of how to do that must be within the journals. And the reason she needs to know the secret, you ask? Well, it's because there's a Wardstone at Orisha that currently is just a big old rock. And they'd like it to do more than that. They'd like it to protect them from the venin. She believes she has translated that the power of the wards may be linked to blood magic. That thing that literally never goes wrong and has literally never led to anything bad in any fantasy book ever. Unfortunately for us, Yezania confirms that the translation is correct, and yes, it is blood magic. Oh, yeah, by the way, Yezania came with the gang, I think, which is crazy because this girl doesn't have a dragon, which means that she had to get on the back of somebody else's dragon to get to Orisha. And dragons famously, they don't even like having their own bonded riders on top of them, let alone some random scribe. Whoever's dragon carried Yezania here, they must have been trying to do them a solid, trying to score some points. I wonder who is trying to score points with Yesenia. It's Sawyer. Sawyer has a crush on Yesenia. At Battle Brief, Brennan talks about the fact that the general public still doesn't know about the presence of wyvern. Remember, those are the Venin's equivalent to dragons. They're kind of like scary little undead, not really living things that fly around. And the reason I say undead, not really living, is because they die the minute that their host dies. So when Violet kills one of the Venin in the Battle of Resin, all of the wyvern that Venin created, because they're not born, they're created, dies. Now, the general public still not knowing about wyvern is pretty impressive, given that Xaden did, of course, drop the carcasses of lots of wyvern at various outposts across the border, but it seems that Basgiath have kept that fairly contained. So while Xaden's quick thinking did in fact create a big enough diversion that he could free Violet, it did not free the rest of Navarre from the lies told to them by big government. Violet is worried that the cadets that have left have now put their families at risk, which she is blaming herself for, yeah. She's also blaming herself for Indana's dodgy wing, although I will say that that second one is kind of her fault. The first one is just like peak victim mentality. I mean, they made their choices, babe. It's nothing to do with you. But that one, maybe you should stop almost dying all the time. It's just an idea. Brennan puts her mind at ease, though, and says that all of the families of the cadets that fled Death College, he will offer them sanctuary in Orisha, which I'm not really sure if, like, he's allowed to do. Is it not Xaden Ryerson's house? Like, it feels a bit rude. Maybe we should ask permission or something, I don't know. One of the cadets in the battle briefing then asks when they get to, quote, kill some dark wielders. Brennan tells him he can kill some dark wielders when he graduates because they don't send cadets to die. Remember, this is not Basgiath, okay? This is Basgiath 2.0. They may be in a rebellion, but they're not quite sending cadets to die just yet. The kid responds to Brennan and says, Saringale and the others didn't die. Excuse me, may I refer you to our dearly departed Liam? Do not forget this man. He's still on the board for a reason. Honestly, he's been dead half a book and already they're forgetting him. Terrible. Anyway, Professor De Vera, who is, by the way, the female professor who I forgot earlier, callback, she then pipes up and says, when you wield lightning, come and talk to me. Violet is so that girl. Brennan also says that the city of Anchor was attacked by Venin and fell, but they regrouped in the recently fallen Zolia, which was, if you remember, the city that fell in part 1 that Professor De Vera made a bunch of pamphlets about and scattered them across battle briefing. And I think General Melgrim was then like, this was a lesson in propaganda and you've all failed. Everything is fine in Zolia. Turns out everything was not fine in Zolia. Everything in Professor De Vera's pamphlet was true. They're all gone. Unfortunately, yeah, they all regrouped there, which indicates they plan to launch an attack from Zolia. Not good. In the last week, Venin have taken the town of Anka. Not surprising, given its proximity to the recently fallen Zolia. Violet reckons Tern, our boy Tern, could fly there in about 12 hours. Tern then says, nah, babe, 10. Probably take me 10 hours. But he also tells her that it's not safe. So Xaden says, but neither is being here beyond the wards without a forge to arm anyone, including ourselves. And Dana, our sassy little diva, she then chimes in and she's like, she makes a good point. Can you carry a luminary? That question insults me. To which Indana replies with one of the highlight lines of this book, can you carry a luminary whilst insulted? Gag him, Indana, gag him! Really have missed dragon banter. Thank you for waking up, Indana. I was struggling without you, babe. Town then alerts Violet to a riot of about 40 dragons approaching Orisha. There is, dare I say, a panic at the disco. They all rush outside, but this riot is led by none other than my favourite Sorengale, Mira. Everyone starts running to the Great Hall to hide, but not Violet though, because of course, she's not like other girls and she's going to try and stop this attack using the power of sibling bonding. Please, Dan, do not let her incinerate this house before I get a chance to talk some sense into her. The guards hold the doors open, no doubt so riders can mount, and I fly straight through, my feet barely skimming the marble steps into the courtyard just in time to see Chenya's wings flames flare directly in front of me to hold a rapid descent. Rock flies in a dusty barrage from the impact of the green clubtail's claws, and I throw my arms up to cover my face as Tian lands directly in front of the courtyard doors, blocking the exit into the town, and 2 others flank him. Their landings just as abrupt. 4 more land on the outer walls, shaking the masonry. They're everywhere. My stomach sinks. We've been betrayed. Someone's told Navarre our location. Tern. Here. He answers a moment before dropping out of the sky like a damn meteor. Chenya steps forward and time feels like it slows to milliseconds as Tern lunges, opening his massive jaw and latching onto Tian's throat just like he had Solus's. Tern! I scream in raw fear. If Chenya dies, so does Mira. For fuck's sake, Violet! Mira shouts. I have his throat, but I have not broken his scales. He assures me, like I'm the one being dramatic here. Well, as long as it's just a threat, I reply sarcastically. Dismount peacefully and Chenya lives. Which, by the way, let's name it for what that was. That was a death threat. She's just threatened to murder her sister because dragons and riders, their life forces are connected, okay? Need I remind you what happened to Liam when his dragon died? That's crazy, actually. Others rush into the courtyard behind me, their feet loud on the gravel, but I keep my eyes locked on Tian and Mira. She dismounts with enviable ease and strides towards me. Her cheeks are red with windburn and her eyes are wild as she lifts her flight goggles to the top of her head. We all come peacefully. It was Ryerson who came for us. How else would we have found you? She glances up at the house without breaking pace. Gods. I thought this place was ash. King of Communicators Zayden has, of course, invited Mira and co to his little villain hideout. Mira says that she found out the truth because Zayden dropped a bunch of wyvern carcasses at her outpost, and then soon General Lilith Sorringale showed up and just told everyone at the outpost the truth. Which, I'm not gonna lie, rare W for Lilith Sorringale. Basically, my understanding is that all of the soldiers at the outposts were essentially given the same decision as the cadets and the professors at Baskaya. They could all learn the truth if the dragons would let them and decide to go to Orisha if they wanted, or they could stay at the outpost and fight for Navarre. In Mira's case, half of her outpost left, and on their way to Orisha, they bumped into another outpost who had made the same decision. So if Brennan thought they were low on supplies before, it's about to get a whole lot worse. Of course, at this point, Brennan hears Sister Mira has come to Orisha, and he makes an appearance. Mira, obviously not knowing that Brennan was alive prior to this exact moment, does what any reasonable sibling would do in this situation, and she punches him in the face. Yeah, not gonna lie, punching my sibling in the face would be the least I would do if they made me believe they were dead for years. I'd be fuming. You've put me through all that grief for what? I burned all your things, babe. Commended them to Malik. You've got no clothes left at home anymore. Mira does actually break Brennan's nose during this exchange, which is genuinely such sibling behaviour. I am going to be honest though, this scene did only reinforce to me that this book would be entirely more interesting if we had it through Mira's POV instead of Violet's, but I guess there might be less Zayden time, and that would be a tragedy for us all. At this point, Brennan sends out a rider to scout for incoming riots to see if they're here to join or attack, and Mira continues to chastise him for letting everyone believe he was dead, which is fair enough. Zayden is watching the 3 of them from the doorway, and Violet, who, by the way, has not been in the same room with both of her siblings for many a year at this point, she dips out of her sibling reunion to go and make out with Zayden Ryerson. Listen, girl, I am also down bad for this man, but right, really? In front of your siblings? And that is exactly what Mira says. Seriously? Right in front of me? To which Brennan replies, oh, this is tame for them. Wait until they decide to basically climb each other in a public place. You can't burn that shit out of your head. Trust me. This is confirmation, by the way, that everyone in this story finds Zayden and Violet's PDA insufferable. Are you not embarrassed, babes? During this kiss with Zadie Ryerson, the harlot of Orisha lets him know that she thinks she's worked out how to activate the wardstone, and she's gonna need the blood of the 6 most powerful riders. How they're gonna judge that? Personally, I like to think they summoned all the riders and did a dragon measuring contest. They were like, whip your dragon out. Whose dragon's the biggest? Yeah, you got all these macho men coming forward. Reckon my dragon's the biggest, actually. Later that day, Violet sets out an attempt to raise the wards. So Brennan decides who the top 6 riders are, and he does this based on our best calculations. Again, arm wrestling match. But the top 6 riders in Orisha, they've determined, are as follows. Xaden Ryerson, Felix. Who? Now, I believe that Felix is on the kind of council of Orisha. He's a very strong rider. Good for him. 3rd top rider is a rider called Suri. Again, not on the board, so irrelevant. 4th top rider is Bodhi, fan favorite Bodhi. Weird that we don't know lots about him and that we only found out what his signet was like 5 minutes ago. Signet, by the way, to counter other signets. Suspicious. The 5th most powerful rider is Violet, okay, silver 1. And the final most powerful rider is, of course, Brennan, because Loki, if I was chosen to select the top 6 riders, I would also put myself on that list. What I can say is that Mira is absolutely fuming that both of her siblings have been put on that list and she hasn't. Listen, babe, I wouldn't worry about it because you're far more interesting than both of them. So anyway, 2 out of 3 Sovereign Girls ain't bad, which good for Lilith. There must be something in those genes. Which interestingly is something that Suri also notes, saying, looks like there's something to be said for family lines. So what she is referencing here is the fact that Brennan and Violet, famously related, so are Xaden and Bodhi. So power clearly does run in the family. The 6 strongest riders come to a, quote, onyx pillar that Xaden believes is made of polished iron. Think he's probably wrong. I'm going to go out on a limb. He's probably wrong. The part of the journal that Violet has translated that made her believe that she needed the blood of the strongest riders is as follows. We gathered the 6 most powerful riders in residence, and the blood of the 6 and the 1 combined, and set the stone ablaze in an iron rain. Violet takes this to mean the blood of the 6 riders onto the 1 stone. Really, Violet, that's really what you took that to mean. Listen, I'm not that good at maths, and even I know that the blood of the 6 and the 1 is 7 people. Stones don't bleed, babe. I guess they don't teach you geology at any of those extra classes they're making the rebels do, because what are you talking about? This is another one of those plot points that just feels really contrived, because again, she's supposed to be the most intelligent person in any room she walks in. And yet, my girl can't do 6 plus 1. My girl thinks stones bleed. The blood of the 6 and the 1 combined. And that is 7, babe. That is seven things that can bleed. In my opinion, this chapter is incredibly forced. It feels incredibly obvious that Rebecca Yaros put this in here so that they have like a failed attempt at trying to solve the journals. Why would she think that the blood of the 6 and 1 combined means 6 riders and the 1 stone? Especially when, in the same sentence, it references the stone on its own. The blood of the 6 and the 1 combined and set the stone ablaze in an iron rain. There is no reason why she would think that the 1 would be referencing the stone, which is named literally 3 words later. That's just not what someone with good reading comprehension would take from that sentence. And therefore, I propose Violet doesn't actually know how to read. I'm sorry, if you want to make me believe that the main character is incredibly intelligent, you need to be able to write a plot that can sustain her intelligence. Violet's intelligence vanishes the minute the plot needs to be fleshed out, that it needs an up and a down. There's no plot points that genuinely feel necessary around her getting things wrong. Because if you'd have told me Violet was a character of average intelligence, I'd have been like, yeah, fair enough. Reading is difficult. I myself struggle. But I have been told she was like groomed by Chief Scribe Markham to be the next head of the scribes. I'll be honest, at this point, she's not even getting into Set 2 English, let alone head of the English department. This is diabolical. Anyway, I digress. Moving on. At this point, Violet kind of briefly explains what she wants people to do. With any luck, it'll be a quick cut across the palm, place our hands on the ward stone, and we should have wards in an iron rain, Bodhi says slowly. Suri draws a knife from her side. Let's get this done. The 6 of us move to the wardstone and I tuck the journal into my flight jacket. Anywhere? Bodhi asks, lowering his knife to just above his palm. The journal didn't specify. Brennan draws his dagger over his palm, then presses his hand to the wardstone. We all follow. The guys, the girls, the gays, and the theys, they all cut their palms, smear it over that stone. and nothing happened. Honestly, it's just like when Dane kissed Violet in Fourth Wing. There's just nothing going on.
I'm done. Suri pulls her hand off the stone. The rest of you can sit here and bleed all night, but this clearly isn't working. No. Felix, Brennan, and Bodhi drop their hands.
Failure clogs my throat, leaving a bitter taste in my mouth. I did everything right. I researched and read and stole a primary source. I translated and double-checked. It's everything I've been working on for months. The key to keeping everyone safe. Did we bleed the wrong 6 writers? Is there an element of magic I missed? Something more to the blood? What did I miss?
Violet has the biggest academic crash out I've ever seen. She's acting like she's never before got a B on a piece of coursework, okay? Which, quite frankly, I don't believe. We've all seen your reading comprehension. Sorry. So yeah, Violet is now in her flop era, I fear. She's not figured out how the Wardstone works, and they've all just sliced and diced their flesh for no reason. Xaden reassures her that she'll figure it out because of course she is famously literate. And then Bodhi hops in and he's like, oh, you know, Violet, it's lost magic. So the stone might just be broken. Suspicious. I'm gonna be honest, I found that suspicious. It's a lost magic, Bodhi says softly, appearing at my side. He rubs his thumb over his newly mended scarless palm. Maybe there's a reason this stone never worked. It might be broken. Now, can we please discuss how we plan to actually acquire that luminary? Suri's tone rises with annoyance. At this point, Suri kind of shades Violet. She's a bit like, babes, I did just like cut myself for you. Didn't work. So can we get off this weird blood magic stuff and move on to something actually important like the luminary, which I do think is kind of fair. Bodhi, Xaden, Mira, Ree, Brannon, Riddick, Sawyer, Imogen, the list of people I've failed goes on and on. I don't fail. I've never failed anything in my life. Well, that first RSC land navigation, but that doesn't count. That was everyone. This is me. Like I said, we have seen Violet fail. She's failed many times, actually. Do you remember the hundreds of times she failed to do the what's it called? The bloody total wipeout USA looking trial that she had to do. She failed that so many times before Xaden was like, yeah, babe, just cheat. She fails all the time. I would go so far as to argue most of the plot of Fourth Wing and Iron Flame is Violet failing and almost dying only to be bailed out by either another character in this story or her dragons. I think the only time she actually did something on her own was when she threw knives to protect Andarna. But even then, Xaden came along. So she wasn't really on her own, was she? He was there just kind of hurling insults or whatnot. I just don't know what she's talking about. I mean, I admire her confidence. I wish I had that unwavering faith. But I'll be honest, this feels like Rebecca put it in here to give Violet some kind of forced character growth, that she's not always right, and it's supposed to be like a humbling moment. At this point, Brennan and the other riders discuss how they're actually going to get the luminary from Takaris because they're over whatever Violet was trying to do, some weird blood magic cult type thing. Now you're probably thinking at this point, who the bloody hell is Viscount Takaris? And I'm going to be honest, I have been thinking the same. So officially, Viscount Takaris is first in line to the Poramish throne. He was named the heir to the throne by the current queen, who is Queen Maria. Now, Queen Maria is not really in this book, but she is in the little tidbits of bonus information that we get at the start of each chapter. Now, I haven't really been reading those to you because look at the length of the video, and that's me just going through the plot. I don't have time to give you the bonus info as well, okay? I'm sorry. But we find out in one of the excerpts pre-chapter that Queen Maria essentially rejected every possible suitor in the Isles, and as a result, she has no partner and no children. You know what? In this economy, babe, I don't blame you. Unfortunately for her, though, she is, of course, the queen, and she needs an heir. So she made the unpopular decision of naming her distant cousin, Viscount Takaris, heir to her throne. Now, if you remember, Count Takaris, he has a luminary, which if you remember, the rebels need the luminary in order to be able to forge weapons that can then be used to kill the venin, because there's only one specific alloy that can make dagger-killing venin. And that alloy can only be smelted using a luminary for some reason. Because I think a luminary is the only thing that can withstand dragon fire and therefore can effectively melt the alloy into weapon shapes. I
think. Honestly, trying to recall all of this information was harder than my GCSEs, okay? I didn't have to remember this much for any of my exams. What is this? I've also just realised that Count Takaris is not on this board. So I should probably add him. But tell you who I did add? Quinny. We love Quinn. Our girl Quinn. Imogen's BFF. Anyway, Violet and co are discussing the negotiations with Count Takaris. And Count Takaris' terms, in order for letting them borrow the luminary, are he wants the rebels to come to his aid when requested, and he still wants to see Violet wield her signet. But Xaden is like, I believe Count Takaris wants to keep our girl Vi as a weapon, okay? Making him sound very people traffickery. I'm not really sure what's going on with this side of the plot, because Count Takaris does just genuinely sound like a people trafficker, and everyone is just seemingly aware of this and apparently fine with it. So this side plot it feels a little forced, I'll be honest, and I'm still not entirely convinced about any of it. So there we are. Anyway, that will be, unfortunately, important later, so you are, of course, gonna have to remember it. Back to the matter at hand, though. So fresh off her quote-unquote first failure, Violet is now determined to go to Cordon and meet with Count Takaris in order to get the luminary. She's like, listen, clearly reading is not for me, so I'm going to go and wield my signet at that weird man who may or may not be a human trafficker, and I'm going to get us the luminary, because I know for a fact that that will keep us safe. And when I say she's determined, she's made this her whole personality now. She's fully committed to this now. She's basically over the journal. She's failed once, she's given up. Could not relate to anything more, Violet. But Brennan realizes how determined she is, and he says, when our girl is determined, she's more tenacious than all of us put together. Xaden obviously still doesn't want her to go and meet Count Takaris because he's sus of the human trafficker. Fair enough, babe. But Violet, she's cooking up a plan. So after the incident with the Wardstone, I Never Make a Mistake Sorringale is now training her signet with Felix, aka one of the strongest riders in Orisha, and one of the council members. And he's doing this in the place of whichever professor was doing it back at Death College 1 who stayed at Death College 1. Felix's main goal is to help Violet focus on her aim and control, because he knows that she can kill Venin if she can actually hit them. Again, another example of where our girl has failed more than she's succeeded. You know how many times she tried to strike down a Venin with lightning in Fourth Wing? Many a time. Maybe if you'd have aimed better, babe. Not to put his death on you, but to say you've never failed when you only took down one Venin by pure luck is crazy. And during this training session, Felix proceeds to absolutely destroy Violet. He basically asks her to do a very simple thing, which is to aim at a rock and hit it with her lightning. She can't do that. And then he's like, what about if you just did like a smaller strike instead of like a really big one and blew up the rock? Like, what if you just did a little one? What about smaller strikes? He turns fully to face me, his boots crunching the rock beneath us, like those that flow from your hands. What the fuck? My face must have read the same because his eyes flare. Are you telling me that you've only wielded full strikes? He points upwards. From the sky? That you just started throwing around bolts and never refined the skill? I brought a cliff down on a classmate that didn't kill him, and from then on, Carr's concern was how big and how often. I lift my hands between us, and lightning comes from the sky, not my hands. Wonderful, he laughs, the sound deep and infuriating. You just might wield the most devastating signet on the continent, but you know nothing about it. Nothing about the energy fields that draw it. Instead of shooting your power like an arrow, precise and measured, you're just heaving it around like boiling oil, hoping you hit something. And lightning comes from the sky or the ground, depending on the storm. So why not your hands? Anger reddens my skin, raises my temperature, prickles my fingers, and pushes the power within me to roar. You are slated to be the most powerful rider of your year, perhaps your entire generation, and yet you're just a glorified light show. Power erupts, and lightning flashes close enough that I feel the heat. Felix glances to the right, where a scorch mark still smokes about 20 feet away. Fuck. Shame races in to overpower the last vestiges of anger. Not only can you not aim, but you have no control, he says without skipping a beat. Like I almost didn't torch us both. I can control— No. He drops down to the pack at his feet and begins sorting through it. That wasn't a question, Sorringale. That was a fact. How often does that happen whenever I'm angry or in Zayden's arms. Too often. At least we found something we can agree on. So yeah, Violet does almost execute her new training instructor on accident, but it's a good thing she's never made a mistake in her life, right? Because that would be bad. Felix offers Violet a conduit, which is an orb etched in runes that will contain her power until she gets better at wielding it. Love a magic orb that fixes all of our problems. Violet looks at her little magic orb and she's like, runes? Yes, runes. Wielded power woven for set purposes, which you know nothing about because Basquiat doesn't teach Tyrish runes, even if the college was fucking built on them. Ooh, a little bit tea there, a little bit tea. Felix then goes on to tell her that she's also incredibly powerful, not just because of her lightning wielding. Lightning may appear from various sources, but Tern channels his power through you. You are the vessel, you are the pathway, you are the cloud, for lack of a better term. How else do you think you can wield from a blue sky? Did you never realize it's easier for you to wield during a storm, but you're capable of both? I never thought about it. No, you were never taught it. Your lack of aim, of control, it's not your fault, it's Car's. Xaden only moves shadows that are already there, I argue. Fighting down the rising emotions I'm worried will lead to another embarrassing strike. Xaden can control and increase what already exists. It's why he's more powerful at night. No two signets are alike, and you create something that was not there before. You wield pure power that takes the form of lightning because that's what you're most comfortable shaping it as. Apparently, Carr never taught you that either. Why wouldn't he? If I was the best weapon. A corner of his mouth lifts into a wry smile. Knowing Carr, I'd say he's scared shitless of you. After all, you just took half of their cadets without even a plan. You brought down Basquiat on a whim, no less. I didn't do that. Xaden did. He hunted riderless wyvern, deposited them on Melgren's front door, and exposed Navarre's greatest secret to the border outpost before noon. But you were the one who demanded he give the cadets a choice. In that moment, you wielded him, our unyielding, uncompromising, headstrong heir apparent. Oh, yes, I forgot to mention his big house that he owns. It is just the city. He owns the entire place. Yeah. Interesting point to note here is that Felix tells Violet that she's not technically a lightning wielder, she's a power wielder, and she wields it as lightning because that's what she's most comfortable with, which is interesting because her mother was a storm wielder. So it's like, ooh, tea. He also explains that she wielded power over Xaden. So basically, she is the greatest weapon, not just because of her signet, but also because she's so hot and cool that Zaddy Ryerson fell for her. And now she controls him too. She's the Xaden Ryerson wielder. That's her secret signet. That's the second signet, guys. We can pack it up, call it a day. We figured it out. After retrieving her little magic orb, Violet goes and talks to Mira, and she is determined to go and get that luminary, even if Xaden has explicitly told her no. Unsurprisingly, because Mira loves the drama, Mira's on board, but in shocking news to everyone, so is Brother Brennan. That's right, guys, the Sorengales have gone rogue. So the newly reformed Sorengale siblings arrive in Cordon at Dakaris' kind of palace, and they're shocked to find that nobody is scared. It's almost like they've all been waiting for them, and they were aware that the Sorengale siblings were coming. Ruh-roh. Brennan essentially warns them that they need to be careful what they say because whatever deal they make with Dakaris will hold them to. So they need to be very specific about wording and be careful. They're all on high alert. They are met by a griffin flyer. And this griffin flyer is a truth sayer. This is the second time we've, of course, met a truth sayer who is someone who can detect lies, which I feel like is probably very obvious and you didn't need that little reminder because they are literally called truth sayers. Which actually, truth sayer makes it sound like the person with the truth saying signet can't lie. Not that they can detect lies, because they are a truth sayer. Does that mean that they just... It sounds like it means they only can speak the truth, which I'll be honest is a terrible signet. Oh yeah, what's your signet? I'm a lightning wielder. Yeah, what's your signet? Oh, you know, I'm a distance jumper. Can go long distances in a single step. Oh yeah, and what's your signet? I can't lie. The lie-detecting Griffin Flyer then demands that Brennan, Mira, and Violet tell their true intentions. I'm here to broker a deal for your luminary in return for weaponry, Brennan declares. The Flyer nods and looks at Mira. Fine, she sighs. Make one wrong move toward my sister, and I'll gut you like a fish. That goes for everyone in this city. How's that for honest? Mira stays on top. My mouth opens slightly as I glance sideways at my sister. Damn it, Mira. Brennan growls. The Flyer's mouth curves into a toothy smile. I can respect that. He glances up at the griffin above him, and the trio parts, revealing the figure waiting directly behind them. A figure dressed entirely in black. His jaw flexes, his hands curl at his side, and his beautiful face, well, he hasn't looked at me with that much anger since discovering my last name on the parapet, back when he wanted to kill me. Guess I should be careful what I ask for, because I'm so fucked. You aren't where I left you, Violence.
That's right. Zaddy Ryerson is already at Corden and he is pissed. Takaris' palace is very fantasy book pretty, is very picturesque. So we've got like bright stone reflecting and shimmering in the light. There's lush grass, butterfly gardens, all of that good stuff, okay? It's essentially the exact opposite to the very dark academia vibes that we've been rocking with thus far. We find out that the reason that Xaden is in Corden is because they changed course the minute that Sigel felt Ten move, because they were like, yeah, we know where they're going. So they preemptively went to Corden too. Violet is not happy with Ten about this. She hits him with a line that my mum used to hit me with when I acted out in public. And she says, "You and I are going to have a discussion." Chills ran up my bones when I read that line. Genuinely got flashbacks to being 8 years old and throwing a hissy fit inside of a shopping mall. My mum, you and I are gonna have a word when we get home. Terrified. Terrified I was. Anyway, Ten is like, I didn't tell her. She sensed me. Like, that's not my fault. Calm down. If I'd have said that to my mother, Ten, it would have been bad. Tell you that for free. They see that there's a pool and Zayden's like, oh, careful though if you've been drinking because there's no rails around the pool and you could drown. And Violet notes that Xaden seems very familiar with this place. Like he's been here before. Violet confronts Xaden and is like, well, babe, how many times have you been here? And he hits her with, I don't exactly keep count. That's suspicious, ladies. Suspicious. Brennan hits her with a, we will not be drinking. Fair enough. Sensible Brennan. It's also worth noting that nobody knows that Brennan is Mira and Violet's brother. They've kept up the ruse that Brennan is dead. So he is Lieutenant Colonel Isare to most people. So if you hear that, that's who we're referring to. We are then introduced to Viscount Takaris. Every single time Viscount Takaris is mentioned in this book, I just see him as Dracula. So I'm going to be doing that accent for Takaris. Anyway, there's going to be a fancy dinner that evening. Someone comes in and says at the fancy dinner they need to dress up and that Xaden knows the rules. At which point Violet starts crashing out because she's like, well, why does Xaden know the rules? That's weird. But it stops being suspicious the second we're introduced to Viscount Takaris' niece, who is of course none other than Catriona. That's right. It's Xaden's ex-girlfriend. Don't worry if you have not brought anything fit for the occasion, Takaris says to me. I took the liberty of having a selection of clothing pulled from my best collection once Ryerson told me you were inbound. My niece will see that you're properly attired, won't you, Cat? He calls back over his shoulder. My stomach hits the sparkly marble floor. You have to be fucking kidding me. You know what, Violet? The crash out that you have here, justified. Yes, it is. Absolutely justified. She's dressed to the nines. Why? Well, she wants back Zaddy Ryerson. Well, you know what, babe? You're gonna have to get in line, because we all want him. Of course, Uncle. Catriona steps down from the front row of the entourage, dressed in a purple long-sleeve gown that shows her elegant figure to its best advantage. I thought she'd been beautiful from a distance, but up close, her features are so truly flawless that she's completely, utterly devastating. Suddenly, I understand exactly why Xaden's been here too many times to count. We are getting into jealousy ex-lovers trope here. Now, my question is, was Xaden so adamant that this was a bad idea, purely out of worry for Violet's safety with Count Orlok? I mean, Viscount Takaris. Or, second option, did he just not want Miss X to meet Miss Current? You know what I mean? You never know with these scheming men. At this point, Xaden's like, I did not know you'd be here. And Catherine is like, well, where else would I be? Let's be real. Anyway, turns out things do get worse. Yes, of course. Because not only does Xaden regularly go to his ex's house to see Count Orlok, but he has his own room in that house.
Kat is showing them to their rooms.
Kat reaches for the golden handle. Why don't you take Issa Rae to dress for dinner while these two wash up? She gives Xaden a longing look and my eyebrows rise. Is she seriously eyeing him up in front of me? We kept your room exactly how you left it, of course. She opens the door, revealing a sizable bedchamber with 2 large beds and a matching gold brocade sofa between them, then walks inside, leaving Mira and me to follow. Wait, he has a room here? What else has he not told me? Or what haven't I asked might be a better question.
Now, I'm going to be honest. If I found out that my partner still had a bedroom, a whole bedroom at their ex's place, the crash out I would have. This is one of the few times where I genuinely believe that Violet's crash out is so warranted. Girl, I think you didn't do enough. And when she shows Violet and Mira to their room, Xaden is like, hey babe, why don't you get ready in my room instead? And Violet hits him with the, no, I don't think I will actually.
Why don't you come get dressed in my room? Xaden asks, and it doesn't sound like a suggestion. Your room? I think I'd like a little space. Heat simmers beneath my skin and I breathe deeply to keep the power caged. Violet. I turn in the doorway to face Xaden and grasp the door handle, lifting my brows at him as Mira edges around me into the chamber. I'm in the room next door, he reassures me, then glances over my shoulder, close enough to hear you scream. Surely you can't be worried that she's in danger from me. I roll my eyes at the incredulity in Kat's tone. Xaden starts. Violet can handle herself, I interrupt, startling Xaden. I never wanted you to have to. Not here. He lowers his head and his voice, narrowing the conversation to the two of us, anger and all. Takaris might want to keep you, but every other flyer in this place will happily slit your throat, and Mira's, in the name of revenge against your mother. Brennan's anonymity is all that saves him here. You have no idea how much danger you're in. The lengths I've gone in order to keep you safe. Stop keeping me safe! I immediately regret raising my voice with Kat in the room and try to steady my ire with a deep breath. You never would have pulled this bullshit last year. You never held me back, never caged me in the name of protecting me. You were the one telling me to find another way on the gauntlet, watching me fight off other cadets at threshing. I wasn't in love with you then. His hand grasps the nape of my neck and his thumb skates over the pulse in my throat. During gauntlet, threshing, I had no idea what you would become to me. And he couldn't kill me thanks to the deal he made with my mom. The deal he still hasn't trusted me with. I was sure as hell hadn't sat by your bedside for 3 days, knowing my life, if it even existed beyond yours, would mean nothing without you in it. The gold flecks in his eyes catch the light, and I can't help but blink at what I see there. You're scared, aren't you? I grasp the door's edge to keep from reaching for him. Of losing you? More like terrified. And when Sigale told me Term was headed this direction, I nearly lost my fucking mind. Shit. What do I say to that? My plan to raise the wards failed and you needed the luminary. I'm not going to sit tucked away in a reshow because you're worried something will happen to me. If I did, I wouldn't be the woman you fell in love with. Your first attempt at translation fails, so you sneak off with your siblings into enemy territory? Make no mistake, this is enemy territory. We both know we need the luminary, and I wouldn't have to sneak if you'd been remotely reasonable. We could have had it months ago. Reasonable. His voice drops to that icy, calm timbre. For looking for another way before serving you to Takaris? Let's get one thing straight. If I ever see a way to keep you safe, I'll take it. Do you know who you sound like right now? Please, enlighten me. He folds his arms across his chest. Dane. I shut the door in his face. As you should, Queen, as you should.
Yeah, to be honest, that is real. Although I don't know if offering yourself up to be human trafficked, which is what this sounds like is going on, is the solution. Also, most of that argument, by the way, is done through their mind speak. But to be crashing out that hard in front of your partner's ex is crazy. An ex that is actively still trying to get with him. Like, have that conversation at another time, surely. You've just given her ammunition. Why have you done that? I've said it once and I will say it again. I don't think I could stomach being around these two. They are like fresh 16-year-olds that have just discovered sex and communication skills, apparently, because they also don't know about levels of appropriateness to have given who your audience is and where you are. They're still working on those, because this is like the second time I've got second-hand embarrassment just from their interactions in this book. Why are they having this argument in front of her sister and his ex? I couldn't think of a worse audience for me and my partner to crash out in front of. That's so embarrassing. It's worth noting at this point that Violet, from the minute Katrina steps on scene, starts acting a little bit crazy. She starts getting really jealous and a lot more angry than usual, to the point where she is genuinely considering stabbing the woman. Anyway, Zara, who is a lady's maid at the palace, helps Violet get dressed for dinner in a beautiful dress, is black of course, and she asks Zara if Count Orlok, aka Viscount Takarus, is a nice person and if he would kidnap someone. Which, I'm going to be honest, I don't think asking a woman who's currently employed at Viscount Takarus' house for a reference on whether he's a nice person is going to give you the most unbiased account. And it's also a really stupid thing because she's not going to say, yeah, no, actually he is. He's actually a horrible man, big on the human trafficking, but I work for him because there's a great pension. Benefits are through the roof, and there's a gym membership.
So it's true the Viscount collects rare objects, Mira asks, coming to stand behind me. He does. What about people? I ask softly. Her eyes flare. Only if they agree to be collected. Kidnapping isn't his thing. I take the sheath and alloy-hilted dagger Mira hands me, then reach into the long slit at my thigh to fasten it against my leg. Hopefully one weapon is enough to make it through dinner. If the Viscount doesn't abduct people, then why was Xaden so scared to bring me here? Someone knocks. No, Zara shakes her head and walks towards the door. He won't lock you away, but he will make you a proposal that will tempt you to be collected. Singers, weavers, storytellers, they all eventually remain, she says as she opens the door. There's nothing Takarus could offer me, but Xaden must think there is.
It's given me major red flags. Major red flags there. Man's collecting people. Concerning. Sounds like Zaddy Ryerson might have been right about wanting to keep Violet away. But I guess Violet has never made a mistake and has never been wrong in her life, so here we are. Okay, I know the fans want a description of Violet's dress, so I'm going to give it to you.
I've never worn anything like it, and it suits my mood perfectly. The bodice, which plummets in a deep V to the base of my ribs, is made of woven black leaves, never bigger than the size of my palm, narrowing above the swells of my breasts to single vines that drape tiny leaves over my shoulders and down the sides of my back, leaving the majority of my spine and all of my relic exposed. What kind of material is this? I ask Zara, fingering the sheer black fabric that falls from my waist to the floor in a multitude of layers. Were it just the one, the gown would be see-through. It's Deverelli silk, Zara says, so fine it's nearly transparent. From the Isle? It's softer than any fabric I've ever touched. You still trade with them? Navarre hasn't in centuries. She nods. We did until the last few years, but the merchants think it's too dangerous to come here now. Anyway, the Viscount likes to keep the most exquisite objects for himself.
She may be wearing a black dress, but I can tell you now, that's a red flag. Now, Catriona, upon seeing Violet in a black dress, well, you know what she's going to do, because she's, of course, playing jealous ex-lover. She hits Violet with a, why have you gone for a black dress then, diva? And Violet is like, well, babes, I'm a rider. Don't know if you've noticed. We never talk about it. We're big on the goth-inspired aesthetic. I mean, minus all the cool parts about being goth. They just wear black a lot, I think. It's not so much goth and more just they've come readily dressed for the funerals of the children that are dying in the Riders Quadrant.
You went with black? Kat stares from the doorway. I'm a rider. Of course. She tilts her head to the side. I just would have chosen something more colourful. Xaden always laments how monotone everything is at Basgiath. There's still time to change, if you like. Her smile is anything but kind. And that's it. I officially loathe her.
You know what, Violet? You and me both, babe. You and me both. Girl has no personality beyond pining for this man. And listen, if there's one thing I don't want for the girls, it's to be pining over a man. I'm sorry, not even Xaden bloody Ryerson, okay? Get up. Like, let's be so for real. Who in casual conversation is saying laments? They're really out here lamenting. I reckon she's just flexing her vocabulary because she heard that Violet was allegedly incredibly intelligent. And so she's like, you know what, let me just drop laments into casual conversation. And shockingly to everyone, Violet and me are on the same page because she says
Xaden doesn't lament anything. An ugly, insidious flame ignites in my stomach, and it takes every ounce of restraint I have to keep from flicking a dagger at her snide head, or at least close to it. And
Are you capable of having a discussion that doesn't revolve around him?
Sure, if it makes you more comfortable, we can discuss how your mother has perpetuated a lie that's cost thousands of Poramish lives, some of which your own sister is responsible for taking. My brows rise. Did she really just? Mira catches my eye, confirming she did. I was going to remind you that it's probably bad manners to stab our hostess, but you know what? She shrugs. Fuck it. We don't need a luminary.
Yes, Mira! Stab her! Anyway, the girls are fighting. It's all very dramatic. Now, at this point, Serena pops up, and you might be thinking, who is Serena? And that's fair enough, because I haven't told you. Serena is a griffin flyer. She is also Catriona's eldest sister, which means that should anything happen to Viscount Takarus, the Poramish throne will go straight to Serena. And should anything happen to Serena, that's right, the throne's going to Catriona. She's going to be a queen. This is important information for you to remember. For later. Serena steps into the doorway and she's kind of like, hey, let's not kill each other, please. Cat, stop being a bitch. In fact, what she says is, stop being a wretch, Cat.
Serena steps into the doorway, dressed in a navy blue formal tunic that's hemmed asymmetrically to a higher line in front and embroidered with golden feathers. Nice to see you off your dragon, Soringale. Is Ryerson hiding somewhere in there, or did he actually let you out of his sight? Good to see you, Serena. A smile curves my mouth at her teasing tone, and the fire in my stomach dissipates a little. He does get a bit protective, doesn't he? He wouldn't be if he thought you were strong enough to stand by his side. Cat counters.
Never mind. It flares brighter than ever, hot, nauseating, and annoyingly strong.
Serena levels a look at Cat that almost makes me pity her. Almost. Serena, this is my sister Mira. I change the subject. Serena's mouth tightens as she studies Mira. Your reputation precedes you. I had friends at Strithmore.
Well, shit. From tense to tenser. So as the situation currently stands, Kat, who is the niece of the man that the gang need to get on side in order to be able to use the luminary to stop the venin, who is Zayden's ex-lover, who's winding Violet up so much that Violet wants to stab her in the throat, which will certainly put a dampener on their plans to acquire the luminary from the man who may or may not be a human trafficker. And then we've got Serena, who turns out Mira Sorengale has murdered most of her friends. So as far as the situation goes, things are not looking great for anyone in this scenario. Serena and Mira then beef about like who's responsible for what, because if you remember in Fourth Wing, they're kind of told that the main battles that go on at the border are between the Griffins and the Dragon Riders. So naturally there have been some altercations. Mira's definitely killed some of the Griffin flyers. Mira asks Serena about someone she believes is her brother called Drake. That's right, Drake is canon in the Fourth Wing cinematic universe. And Serena says, "You're thinking of Drake," Serena says over her shoulder. "Same last name, but he's our cousin. And come to think of it, you're just his type. He likes women who might actually kill him." "Too bad I don't go for Griffin flyers," Mira responds as we round the corner to the next flight of stairs. "Yeah, he'd probably draw the line at a Dragon Rider." Serena laughs, but it's short-lived. "He's in the Nightwing Drift in the north, along the Breivik border. I don't know their unit terminology, but the Breivik border means he's on the front line." Okay, this, I believe, is Yaros setting up a potential love interest for Mira at a later date, because otherwise it seems weird to drop it in here. So, wouldn't be surprised if Mira finally gets her rocks off in Onyx Storm, because my god, like she's a total babe. Why is she not out here slaying in the sheets? Anyway, this goes on for a little while, but we've kind of just got like a Mira Violet double act that's just filled with hatred and vitriol. Like it's just them hating everyone. I actually kind of love that. I feel like we've been missing a lot of siblingly bonding over mutual hatred in the books thus far, and I'm just very glad to see it. We then have the typical fantasy moment of the grand entrance. So all four ladies, we're talking Kat, we're talking Serena, we're talking Violet, we're talking Mira, all get their grand walking down the staircase entrance. Very nice. And obviously Violet is looking mighty fine in that little black spicy number. So her and Zayden lock eyes across the room in seconds. Like it literally says in seconds because, and I quote, "because he's my center of gravity." And to be honest, that sentence made me think that maybe Violet has been skipping the physics class at Rebel School, because I don't think that's how that works. Anyway, Zayden says that she's playing dirty tricks by wearing that dress. Teehee. "You're playing dirty, Violence." The next line from Violet is really interesting because she then says, "But why is he headed for me when the obvious choice is the woman in red just a few feet away? That woman in red being Catriona. Now, why is Violet being so insecure, you ask? Well, we'll get to it.
I'm still really damned angry with you. I lift my chin, just as furious with myself for getting into this position, for feeling whatever this bullshit is. Feeling is mutual. He slides one hand into my hair, then sucks a breath through his teeth when his fingers meet the skin at the base of my spine. But it's possible to be angry while still madly, wildly, uncontrollably in love with me. His mouth crashes into mine in the same instant the world goes dark around us, blocking out everything, everyone but Zayden. We might as well be the only people in the entire province. My body ignites.
Okay, then it goes on like that for a while, you know.
Just like that, the hottest of my jealousy, the infuriating insecurity that had me second-guessing myself is gone. What did you do? I break the kiss, breathing deeply, and he leans his forehead against mine, keeping us cocooned in total darkness. What I should have done the second I saw you this afternoon. His hand tightens in my hair, tugging it slightly, and probably shocked Kat enough to make her stop with your head. What do you mean? She has the gift of heightening the emotions of the people around her, and she's exceptionally powerful. If you hadn't blocked me out all evening, I would have told you sooner.
Basically, Catriona is, for lack of a better word, she's an empath. That's right, yes she is. She is #1 empath of all time, and she can not only feel the emotions of the people around her, but she can maximize them. Meaning that if Violet was feeling a little bit jealous, the reason she suddenly started feeling insanely jealous and insanely angry and a little bit crazy is not just because she's emotionally unstable, like I potentially thought. It's because Catriona has been messing with her head this whole time. Zayden at this point tells Violet that she's won, and she's like, I didn't even start a fight, babe. And he goes,
we can fight as much as you want later tonight. Just know that you've already won.
That dress really did a number on him. Back to the plot, which I am losing. Viscount Takaris wants to see Violet wield her power before he enters negotiations about the Luminary. He essentially just wants her to put on a show for the other guests that are at this dinner. But hilariously, what he wants Violet to do is to hit a target. Now, one thing about Violet, that girl can't aim for shit, okay? And what he wants her to hit is a chest that belongs to Zayden's dad, T. Apparently, the chest is a great treasure, one of the most valuable items I've ever owned. Not entirely sure why the Viscount wants to destroy this chest then with a lightning bolt, but this is what he's asked her to do regardless. So, Takaris' offer is, as long as you don't step foot in the area, Ryerson, and she doesn't leave the field, that's right, they're outside now, because famously, lightning, inside's bad idea, and she doesn't leave the field until she strikes the target, we'll open discussions for your luminary. Take the deal, or leave it.
We'll leave. Deal! You don't have to protect me from my own signet. If he wants me to blow up your father's chest, I'll blow up your father's chest.
Fair enough. Essentially, what they've worked out is by getting Violet, the person that Zayden loves, to destroy a precious treasure that belonged to Fenris and Zayden's dad, it's basically like a really big power play by Count Dracula over here. Mira decides, listen, okay, he didn't say anything about me not being able to go down. So Mira and Violet then walk down this kind of stone quarried area down to like a fielded grass bit right in the center. It's basically like an arena. They're in the middle, there's like a field and everyone's watching.
I'm coming, Mira announces from behind me. It's not like I have anything to do with her signet. She yells back at Takaris as she catches up to me. The Viscount doesn't argue, and mine isn't effective this far from the wards. She finishes in a whisper. I tried earlier and nothing happened.
So unfortunately, Mira's signet for extending the wards doesn't work this far away from them. So Mira is essentially signetless at this point.
Don't worry, we don't need you to shield. Just dodge the chest if it explodes, I respond, giving her a tight smile. What greater treasure was your father negotiating for? I ask Zayden down the bond, once we're halfway down the sand-colored stone. I can't even imagine how long it would have taken to quarry enough stone to build this, let alone bring it back on the edge of Breivik.
And Zayden says,
an alliance my father made that I officially denied last year. The chest is priceless. If he wants you to destroy it with lightning, then this is more a statement about me and less about you. That information would have been valuable before arriving. Still fighting. Got it. Mira and I reach the grass as the first raindrops fall.
So we've got Violet and Mira, they're staring down at a chest. It's raining, it's all very dramatic. But as Violet is getting ready to strike the chest with lightning, it opens up. And can we guess what pops out of that chest? Can we guess? Any guesses? Any guesses? If you said a venin, you'd be bang on the money. Yikes. Big yikes. That's right. A venin has just been trapped in a chest, I guess, for weeks and has been released by none other than Count Takaris. It's not looking good for the girls at this point. Now, the chapter that follows is probably one of the more interesting chapters of this entire book. The writing in this chapter is incredibly engaging and visually interesting, which I found incredibly fun. I really enjoyed the stakes in this chapter, the tension, and to be honest, I think that this chapter was some of Rebecca's best writing in the series so far, and that could be because you're in a contained environment and there's only a few characters to focus on in the dynamic of the action, which means that Rebecca is able to communicate and formulate a clearer picture of what is happening that makes it easier for the reader to visualize. Whereas a lot of chapters in the book involve like 15 characters sometimes, particularly the fight scenes across multiple locations. And I think that's a lot to manage as an author, particularly an author that doesn't usually write fantasy. This is a good chapter is what I'm trying to say. I enjoyed this chapter. Violet then begins to go absolutely berserk. She's firing lightning bolts left, right, and center. You know where she isn't firing them? At the venin. Yeah, she's missing every shot, unfortunately. She screams at 10. She's like, 10, I need you. 10's like, I am on my way, babe. Because the dragons weren't allowed at the palace. Fair enough. 10 starts screaming Silver One. He's panicking. We're all panicking at this point. No one more than Mira, who has never really seen a venin before, so she doesn't really know what's going on. So she grabs her knife and chucks a knife at the venin, right? It hits. Amazing work. If it weren't for the fact that the venin then pulls out the knife and starts holding it. To which Violet looks at the venin and looks at Mira and goes, great, now he has a knife. Violet, you've been funny. Why are you not this funny throughout the rest of the book, babe? You have potential. Xaden starts throwing some anti-venin daggers at them. Violet attempts to fling one of those anti-venin daggers at the venin. It's not going very well. Xaden, of course, can't go down to help fight the venin, because if he does, it breaks off the deal that he made with Takaris to get the luminary. But Brennan then goes, well, I didn't make a deal. He jumps down. It is now 3 Sorrengails versus 1 venin. It's crazy. Unfortunately, Brennan did choose a bad time to join, because then the venin touches the ground and begins to suck the life out of it. That's right. All 3 Sorrengails are about to be disintegrated. Terrible news. Good thing that Mira somehow, out of nowhere, manages to put up a ward around the 3 Sorrengail siblings. I don't know how she's done that. Not able to do that. Suddenly able to do that. Anyway, she does this and then proceeds to pass out. Great effort from Sister Mira. She has just saved the 3 Sorrengails. Everyone say thank you, Mira. Violet then tells Brennan to get Mira out of here. The venin shouldn't be able to suck any more life out of the earth because the field bit that they were in at the bottom of this kind of quarry is gone. There's no more life for him to suck off the floor directly unless he gets out of the little quarry pool thing and he goes and starts murdering people who are looking down at the top, right? Now it's somewhat fairly even grounds for the venin, those, because it's just 1 venin versus 1 Sorrengail now. But luckily, Taryn is now close. So Violet soaks herself in Taryn's power, giving it free reign, letting it fill every inch of my body. What the fuck are you doing, Violence? Xaden demands. Shh! I'm concentrating. I slam my shields up, blocking him out as the venin pivots. The asshole smiles wider when he sees me. You'll be quite the prize, he calls out over the rain, striding toward me as if we have all the time in the world. And to think, he'll bring a dragon with you. You can't be parted for long, can you? This is the venin talking, by the way. That's the accent I've given the venin. The venin can talk. Yes, they're very scary. I grasp an alloy-hilted dagger in each hand and wait. If I lose my temper, I'm dead. Charge him and lose, I'm dead. Wait too long and let him get his hands on me? Yep. Dead. The female I killed on Taryn's back watched my fighting style and instantly adapted, which means I have to wait until the last possible second to show my hand. Rain sizzles as it hits my heated skin. If I reach for much more, I'll lose the ability to control it and burn out. So I hover on that edge as I hear another sound overpour the rain. Wings. I don't need to stress the importance of timing, do I? Taryn asks. My timing will be perfect. The pounding of my heart steadies with each step the venin takes. Sure of my course. There's no room for error. I glance right just long enough to see that Mira and Brennan made it off the field. I expect nothing less. The dark wilder is only a feet away.
his gaze raking over me, no doubt looking for my weaknesses, when I feel the gust of wind from Tarn's wings at my back. Now, I throw the daggers at the venom simultaneously, this time calculating for the force of the rain. The instant I see them slice through his boots, pinning his feet to the ground, I whip my arms out to the side, releasing all my power in a scalding torrent of lightning. I stiffen my arms and lock every muscle. Tarn's talons wrap over my shoulders, grasping tight exactly as lightning strikes behind the enraged venom, lighting up the sky in a brilliant flash and charging the water that covers the arena and the venom's feet with lethal energy. The dark wielder shrieks in agony, then falls dead, splashing into the field as we fly overhead. I did it. Don't be blessed. I did it. You cut it close. I roll my eyes and breathe deeply, despite the rain that runs down my face as Tarn banks left, taking us along the curve of the arena, back to the palace. Sigale, Jin, and Marb have all taken up defensive perches on the terrace above, positioning themselves to incinerate the crowd. I will devour anyone who makes a move against you. My patience has ended. Tarn's wings beat slower as we approach the patio. I'll be sure to warn them. Tarn waits until I have my balance on my soaked, slippered feet, then stalks forward through the crowd to the cries of flyers and aristocrats alike, cracking the marble beneath his claws until he reaches the grass and pivots, swinging his tail like the weapon it is and completing the four-cornered defense the dragons have structured.
Basically, Violet's just murked a venom and she's done it all in a silk dress. That's a woman in STEM if I ever saw one. At this point, Violet asks Mira and Brennan if they're all right, and Brennan is like, yeah, no, we're not the ones you need to worry about. And Violet's like, what do you mean?
Xaden's lifted hand is raised at his chest, clenched in a partial fist, and wrath chills his eyes as he stares up at the Viscount, whose feet kick for the ground. Takaris tears inaffectionately at the shadows strangling his neck, and from the garbled sound of his breathing, he's slowly asphyxiating. Xaden, please don't! Kat cries. Xaden's grip only tightens as the rain dissipates to a drizzle.
Yeah, that's right. Xaden is now currently strangling Viscount Orlok with his shadows. Right. That is such a Xaden move.
Takaris gurgles, and the flyers draw their weapons, but one growl from Sigale is enough to keep them from advancing on Xaden. I lower the portion of my shields that allows Xaden in, and then send every ounce of my love down the bond. I'm all right. He tears his gaze from Takaris, the barely caged rage in his eyes, making him nearly unrecognizable. Loosen your grip on his throat, I say calmly. He can't answer questions if he's dead. 2 lines appear in Xaden's dark brows and his grip eases. You're lucky you're not dead, I say up at Takaris' blotchy face. If you'd put Xaden in that kind of danger, I'm not sure I would have been as merciful.
You call this mercy?
Takaris asks through gasped breaths, still kicking for the ground. Yes, Xaden says. You quarried the stones from the east of the Dunnis River, the land that borders the Barrens. It had already been drained of magic.
Yes!
Takaris shouts. Xaden swears under his breath. You built a pit for them, which means you've captured more than just one. Puffs of steam rise from my skin, but at least I don't feel like I'm burning alive.
I'll tell you everything we know,
Takaris assures us.
just let me down.
And we're supposed to trust you? Brennan asks from my other side.
We were able to keep that one from feeding for days.
Because the runes on the Repstad chest hold items placed inside suspended in midair. Xaden interrupts. He couldn't reach the ground to drain it until you open the chest. I don't need you to tell me things I already know.
Basically, Takaris explains that they managed to keep the venom from feeding by putting them inside the Repstad chest, which is the chest that Xaden's daddy dearest used to own, and that chest keeps the items put inside it suspended in the air, which means the venom can't touch the ground to feed. Which, to be honest, I'm struggling to understand what practical capability that chest exists for beyond suspending the venom. Okay, you've got a chest that can hold items. Great. As chests often do. What practical reason would you have for having a chest that keeps the things inside it suspended in the air? Maybe I'm just stupid, but I'm struggling to understand what the purpose of someone inventing that would be. What, you want to keep your ultra delicate fruits suspended in the air so they don't bruise in the basket? I don't know. What are we even talking about?
He drops his hand and the shadows evaporate. Takaris slams into the marble patio, grasping for his throat. Xaden crouches. If you ever want to have words about why I severed that alliance, then you come for me. Violet is beyond your reach. If you so much as look
in her direction with anything but the utmost kindness and respect, I'll kill you without a second thought and let Serena take her place as heir. Do you understand me?
His voice has that icy softness that sends chills up my spine. Takaris nods.
Apologize.
I'm fine. He's taking this too far. This man is second in line to the Paramish throne.
You do not take punishments designed for me.
You have my utmost sincere apology, Violet Soaringale.
Takaris croaks through abused vocal cords.
Now where does this leave us, Ryerson?
Xaden stands. Now we negotiate.
The riders eventually agree to supply Takaris with weapons, as well as take roughly 100 Griffin Flyers as cadets to train them in exchange for the Luminary. And I'm not giving you any points if you've worked out who may in fact be included in those 100 Griffin Flyers. No points at all. But the big takeaway from all of this is that the Griffin Flyers and the Dragon Riders are now allied against the Wyvern and the Venom, I think. And the riders are going to teach the Griffin Flyers how to better kill them. It's an alliance. An alliance. Lovely. All good alliances are formed with a little light asphyxiation. Now, the next chapter is really bizarre because it's the journey of the riders getting the 100 Griffinfly cadets to Orisha. Now, you would think that that would be a simple task because everyone in that scenario can fly. But no. Turns out that griffins can't fly at altitude like dragons can, which I'll get into why that's a little bit insane in a minute. But because of this, everyone has to hike a narrow path towards Orisha to get there, and it takes like 12 hours. Now, I'm going to need someone to explain to me how natural evolution has not done a solid for these griffins. You're telling me you're a giant lion that can fly, right? Lovely. But you can't fly at altitude in a climate whereby most things are in the mountains. That just doesn't make any sense. It's got no basis in evolution. You're telling me they've got the evolutionary capabilities of developing wings to fly, so how does it make sense that those griffins get altitude sickness? Look, if you look at the map, there are mountains there, okay? Why can't they fly very high? It doesn't make any sense. I'm sorry, but it's just giving contrived plot point purely for this chapter. I've got beef with that. Anyway, the Dragon Riders are paired off with Griffin Flyers, and they are hiking up with the Griffin Flyers and their griffins as like a bonding exercise. Violet is paired with a rider called Marin, whose griffin is called Daha, and Marin tells her that she's going to Orisha because it's the best chance of survival for both herself and for her people. And I'm going to be honest, this is boring and I didn't care. I skim read most of this. They have a conversation about how riders become riders and how Griffin Flyers become flyers. And Marin says that the Griffin Flyers become flyers by jumping off of a cliff onto passing griffins to bond with them. But if they miss, they just land in the water and swim to shore. And then they just join like a different branch of the service, like the infantry or the artillery. And Marin, this is what brought me back from I'm bored to, okay, I'm back on board this ship. And Marin says that she thinks that the leadership at Basquiat are insane for killing off so many people on conscription day. And honestly, she's so right for that. Marin, I've been saying that the entire book. I'm sorry that I skim read your initial introduction. You're not boring at all, babe. You may be the only one with a brain. But also, to be real, I do think I would stand a better chance of walking on the parapet than jumping off a cliff onto a flying lion who suffers with altitude sickness, apparently. The other thing I want to say here is that I do very much feel like Marin was an inserted character just to voice the criticisms that readers had of the setup of Fourth Wing. Readers were like, hey, you know that this doesn't make any sense, right? To be killing off this many people who are like fit and able and could very easily join a different quadrant instead of just dying. You know what I mean? that point that I kept making for the entirety of the Fourth Wing recap. Yeah, it felt like Marin's little insert here was very much Rebecca being like, yeah, see, everyone who isn't in Navarre thinks it's crazy too. Yeah, we're all on board. Who made that up? Anyway, back to Marin. Marin is, of course, Kat's best friend. And just to balance it out, Rhiannon gets paired with Kat.
So we got two besties paired with two besties. It's giving symmetry, parallels, if you will. Now, what's a bit crazy is that unlike Kat, Marin is actually quite nice. And Sloane, who, yes, famously sister of dearly departed Liam, rest in peace, Sloane is walking with Violet and Marin. And Sloane says that she read in Liam's letters that he hates Kat. By all accounts, everyone, including Marin, by the way, agrees that Kat is a bit unhinged. So it's not me hating on a woman. It's me and every other character in this book hating on a woman. And that makes it okay. Whilst all this is going on, Ten tells Violet that the first Orishan-born hatchling has been born on the new dragon hatchling grounds outside of Orisha. Big news for dragon lovers everywhere. At this point, they are 11 hours into the hike up the mountain. They're all pretty altitude sick. Nobody's having a good time. Violet's exhausted. And then they discover a trap. Essentially, Dane is stationed at a particularly foggy part of the cliff, and they've put like a marker there to show that there's a section of the path which triggers a pressure sensor trap that shoots a bunch of arrows, but they don't know where the arrows shoot from. And these are left over from Orisha's defenses to stop people from being able to attack them via this pathway. But because it's quite old now, they have no idea where the arrows are coming from, so they can't deactivate it. So Dane is just standing by where this pressure triggered trap is, and he's basically telling people they have to jump across as so not to trigger the trap. It's worth noting, by the way, that they are on like a cliff face. So it's like back to the wall, they're safe, but then it's like a big drop off the edge of the cliff. So when they're jumping over the trap, if they mess up their landing or whatever, or they go too far one way, they're gonna fall off the cliff and die. Yeah, just in case you thought the stakes weren't high enough. Bad news is that they've realised that famously vertically challenged woman Violet Sorringale and a short queen who is a griffin flyer called Luella are probably going to be too short to be able to jump across the trap. So Riddick comes up with an idea to use Dane's longsword. Dane's here, by the way. Classic Dane. Shove it into the side of the cliff and allow Violet to essentially run, grab onto it, and swing across the gap. Riddick slams the rock against the pommel, hammering it deeper into the cliff until almost every inch of the blade has disappeared, and I don't miss the slight flinch on Dane's face. Riddick grabs the hilt and tests it with one palm, then two. I hold my breath when he drops all of his weight onto it, and thank done, it doesn't give. He rocks his body backwards, then swings forward, letting go at the height of his arc and landing on the other side of the rope. This might work. And suddenly, this is the gauntlet, not the parapet. Sloane mutters. Easy, Riddick says, then pivots to face me and holds out his arms. Let's go, Vi. I'll even catch you. Fuck off. I lift my middle finger but grin across the haze at him. I'm really hoping you're right-handed, I say to Luella. She nods. Good. That hilt is 8 inches. 7, Dane corrects. Imagine a man actually shortening a girl's estimate, Marin teases. I can't help but smile. Right. 7 inches. Just have to jump far enough to grab it and then swing across like Riddick. Luella looks at me like I just told her we'll be climbing the rest of this cliff by hand. Want me to go first? I offer. She nods. Please take the dizziness, and I swear I'll build you a bigger temple in Orisha. I pray to Dun. But maybe that plea should have been aimed at Zinal, because damn, do we need some luck. Butterflies attack my stomach. You sure? Dane asks. I level a glare at him. You're sure? He restates it as a fact, then backs up to give me more room. I bounce on the balls of my feet and spring forward, planting that last step just before the rope and leaping toward the hilt. I feel every beat of my heart marking time as I'm airborne. Reach it. Reach it. Reach it! My right hand makes contact first, and I grip hard, slamming my left into the available space and holding tight as my body swings so I don't fly and trigger the trap. You've got this, Riddick shouts, holding out his arms. I will kick you in the face if you try to catch me, I warn. He grins and backs up a few steps as I take breath after breath, pushing back the blackening edges of my vision with sheer will, refusing to let dizziness win. I will not fucking die today. So here we have an example of Violet praying to the gods and her vision starts to clear. Interesting. And then she's like, oh, maybe actually I should ask Zinal, because I need some luck. I wonder if that'll come up in book 3. Anyway, Violet crosses, no problem. It's a win for the silver one. Luella, however, not so much. Luella dives forward, hurling her body where she was looking, at me instead of Kablair, and I barely have time to open my arms before she impacts, driving me backward at an angle into Vicia, toward the edge of the cliff. V! Riddick shouts. I try to pivot,
to heave as much of our weight towards the safety of the wall as I can, but there's not enough time or strength, and we flounder, tangled in each other. Feet trip other feet, and I start to fall. We all do. A hand grasps the waistband of the back of my leathers and pulls, changing the direction of my fall. Riddick! My feet lose traction as my momentum shifts, and I hit my knees near the edge of the cliff just in time to see Vicia and Luella start to slide over, and I can no longer stop time. No! I scramble forward, rock scraping over my torso, and throw out my arms, reaching for whoever is closest as a sound like gushing wind rushes over my head. Vicia grabs hold of my left hand, and Luella grips my right wrist, the weight of both women nearly taking me to join them. My right shoulder pops from the socket, and agony rips through my throat with a scream. Vicia fumbles for a handhold along the wall, but Luella has both hands locked on my wrist, her feet kicking for purchase. Pull me up! Luella shrieks, and I'm in too much pain to verbalize that I can't. Riddick! I shout as the edges of my vision blur, then blacken. Help me! Feet pound, but Luella's grip slips from my wrist to my hand, and I chance a look over my right shoulder, hoping for a rescue as Vicia's weight disappears, plucked from the side of the cliff by a giant beak. Kibby. Vicia was in his way. The griffin dumps the rider on the ledge and then cranes his enormous neck towards Luella as boot steps race down the ascent. But all I see is Riddick, staggering backward towards the wall, 2 arrows piercing the side of his abdomen. I'm all right, he nods quickly, glancing down at the arrows, blood trickling from his mouth. No! No, no! I scream up the cliff for the only person who can save him now. Brennan!
That's right, Riddick's been shot. Not once, but twice. I'm not being funny, guys, but that feels like it crosses a line. I don't really care about any of these Griffin Flyers. I don't really care about most of the Dragon Riders. You want to now take Riddick from me. Bisexual King Riddick. Comedic relief character Riddick. The one shining light and joy of hope in this whole book, Riddick. Rebecca, when I catch you, Rebecca. Luella then slips from Violet's hand, and she does in fact fall down the cliff to her death. I gotta say, I fear we all saw that coming because the poor girl did just get some character development, and famously, we all know how well that goes. Kat then blames Violet for Luella's death, which I'm gonna be honest, she's clearly not very good at maths because I'm not sure how she's added 2 and 2 together to get Violet at this point, because it's Luella who triggered the trap. If you really think about it, it's Luella's fault for being so short. Like, she should have had some more milk as a child. She's got like an iron deficiency or something, and her bones just... Anyway, hate is gonna hate, and Catriona is most certainly a Violet hater. Kat starts attacking Violet. You dropped her! Dane is then helping Violet. Oh, I should have mentioned, by the way, the reason why Xaden isn't helping Violet and Dane is because Xaden isn't on this little school D&E trip. He's on a secret mission, whatever that means. So Dane is reprising his role of wannabe boyfriend from book 1, and he is now helping Violet Sorrengail with her dislocated shoulder. Dane then tells Kat, take 1 step towards Violet and I'll throw you off this fucking cliff myself. Unlike Ryerson, I don't give a shit who your uncle is. I'm not gonna lie, guys. Kinda like that. Riddick is still bleeding out, by the way. Like, I don't know why we've got time for any of this. Riddick is dying. That should be the #1 priority here. Riddick. He is always my priority, because apparently he's none of yours. Anyway, but thankfully we don't have to worry about that for much longer, because Brennan arrives to save Riddick. Thank God. Sorry. Thank God. And just when you think we're going to get a moment of peace amongst this chaos, what happens? A bloody wyvern appears. Why? Because Violet Sorrengail will, of course, never know peace. And you may be thinking at this point, where are the dragons? The dragons are flying above the route that the griffins, the griffin flyers, and the riders were walking, because the pass is too narrow for dragons to walk on, and flying too close to where they are walking will disrupt the rock and could potentially cause a landslide and kill some of the riders and the flyers, which is not great. They're doing a great job of killing each other as it is, so we don't really need dragon intervention for that. But the dragons are kind of acting as eyes in the sky, trying to keep them safe. But what's important to note is that at this point, it's very foggy. Yes, it is. They're very, very high up and things have gotten foggy. So naturally, hard for dragons to see. Yes, because we needed even more variables that would make this entire situation more chaotic. Yes. So Tarn just says to Violet, something is wrong. He doesn't do nothing. Wyvern appears. Now, before we return to the Wyvern situation, which I know you're all gagging for me to return to. I have a question about this big DOV hike, right? Could we not have just gotten some of the dragons to like claw grip some of the griffin flyers? Listen, I know that dragons are really funny about other people flying on them and that they think griffins are stinky. But like, you would rather waste an entire day, 12-hour hike, dangerous hike through a path rigged with traps that could potentially kill your rider. You'd rather risk that than just, I don't know, airlifting some griffin flyers into Orisha. Like, let the griffins walk the path on their own. They're big boys. Literally, they are lions. Anyway, back to the wyvern. It's eaten one of the griffins. And as you might imagine, all hell breaks loose. This point is looking like Riddick might not make it. Brennan isn't certain he can heal what is going on with Riddick, and I'm not certain I will continue this series if this man dies. So if Brennan, you don't pull your shit together and cure our man right now, it's gonna be a DNF from me. Now at this point, right, Brennan calls for a wind wielder to clear the clouds. Which, like, guys, we've been fighting this fog for the last 6 hours on this DOV expedition, and we're only just thinking of asking the wind wielder to try and clear it the minute that the deadly wyvern appears. We didn't think that we maybe could have seen the wyvern coming if we had, I don't know, thought to clear the thick fog beforehand. Like, this book keeps trying to convince me that Violet is intelligent, okay? And this is not only on her, granted, but you're telling me that anyone here amongst these riders who knew that there was a wind wielder with them, when they encountered thick fog, your first thought would not have been, maybe we should ask the wind wielder to try and clear the fog. At this point, the cloud's clear, Tern can finally see, and our boy is back in the game. Violet mounts Tern, and they head for the wyverns to try and get the wyverns to follow them and get them away from the others. They soar up into the clouds, the wyverns are following. They fly either side of Tern, but luckily, they're riderless. Violet then uses her lightning to kill all 4 of the wyvern, soloed them. Absolutely bodied them. Yay, girl boss Violet, we all say. Now, I know at this point you probably want to celebrate, but you can't because you've remembered that Brennan is trying desperately to save Riddick from dying at this point. Violet comes back down and thank God we find out that Brennan has in fact managed to save Riddick. Whew. I know you were panicking. I was panicking, honestly. Afterwards, Violet is talking to the others about everything that went on with the wyvern, and Tern says that the birth of a hatchling would have alerted any creatures capable of channeling within a 4-hour radius. And Dane notes that Orisha probably sounds like a great place to drain if there's hatchling grounds there, which means the wyvern were probably there scouting for the new hatching grounds of the dragons in Orisha. Brennan then says that the Venin share a collective consciousness with the wyvern that they create. So if one of the wyvern found out that the hatching grounds is there and it's a ripe target, now all of the Venin know. So that's really bloody great. Sure, everyone's feeling wonderful about that. Once again, Violet will, in fact, never know peace. Okay, so obviously we're all thinking R.I.P. Luella, you will be missed. Except me, because I didn't really know who this short queen was to begin with. I only know one short queen, and that is Violet Harlot of Orisha Sorengale. So, after Griffin Flyers fall off a mountain gate, we naturally have some tension amongst the crew, okay? But good news is, the luminary is now working. So they've now got kind of like a way to forge new venin hunting weapons. Very good, very nice. At this point, I'm going to add none other than venin to the board, okay? This represents the sage big boy venin, okay? But I've just done venin generic right now. Will be coming up again later. And they will be coming up right now because that's right, the wyvern have been doing the rounds near Orisha. It seems that the predators are sensing a shift and they are lurking. Things aren't good, but dragon boys are fighting back. And most of the time these wyverns seem to be unmanned, so everything's all right. And they've been lurking for about a month at this point. That's right, we've got a month time jump. You would think that a month would be enough for the griffin flies to get over the fact that, you know, the dragon riders are kind of like, have been killing them for the last like 50 years, but apparently not, because there is still some tension betwixt the two factions, dare I say. They now have to attend Rebel School Basquiath 2.0 together. So the Griffin Flyers are now kind of present in physics class, battle brief, they're all there, which is very funny because it's kind of got the vibes of a single sex school that becomes co-ed at sixth form. So there's drama, okay? The girls are not getting along. They're not. There's a lot of problems. And granted, the problems are mainly caused by the fact that many of the people in those classes are responsible for killing each other's loved ones. But I personally don't think that that's a reason that you shouldn't get along. I mean, look at Violet and Xaden. I mean, initially, her mum murked his dad. I mean, she thought his dad killed her brother. And they were still down to get jiggy with it. So to be honest, this is a lesson. As long as the person who killed your family member was hot, I guess you should still give them a chance. So yeah, the Griffinflies Dragon Riders aren't getting along super well at this point, even though it's been a month. But you know what? It is what it is. Kat is still trying to seduce Xaden. And when I say trying, I do mean trying. Okay? This girl rocks up to his room in silk robes. CEO of Subtle Industries over here, Catriona, has the whole gang talking. It is really given high school drama. I kind of enjoyed it. It was silly. Some more pointless but ultimately fun gossip. Sawyer is into Yesenia. He loves an educated woman. He wants to ask her out, but they're experiencing a bit of a communication issue because Yesenia, of course, is deaf and Sawyer does not speak sign language. So our boy Sawyer is trying to learn sign language as fast as he can with Violet so that he can bag an intellectual baddie. It's all very sweet. Again, I do have questions about how Miss Yesenia even got to Orisha. Whose dragon carried her? I honestly imagine it was Sawyer, and Sawyer was just out there begging his dragon. It's just like, please, just this one time wingman me, this one time, please. Please, I really like this girl. Please, help me airdrop her to our rebel base. And the dragon's just there like, oh, kids. Anyway, class is in session. So, Professor Trissa gathers all of the students to teach them about runes, which he explains as strands of magic pulled from our power, woven into geometric patterns for specific uses, then placed into an object, either for immediate work or usage at a later date, which is a process called tempering, which makes the magic active. Are we all keeping up? Professor Trissa then explains that the reason that runes were banned was to keep the magic out of the flyers' hands, since it allows them to be magically on the same playing field as the riders, which you just know we cannot be having. Anyway, the class then begins to practice making runes, and would you believe it, Kat proves to be very adept at it. Yeah, not Violet Sorringale, Catriona. This will be a theme I do not love, but it will be a theme. Later, Violet asks Xaden if he put an unlocking rune on her dagger, which is how she managed to get out of the interrogation room at Basquiath, on the assessment of whether or not they could withstand torture techniques. Do you remember that one? Xaden says yes, and that the rune in her dagger responds where there is a need to open a door. Right. Xaden then reveals that runes were the reason that he had her tying fabric knots and practicing weaving in part 1. Which, like, could he not just have told her that? This girl was really just not asking any questions in part 1. He was like, hey babe, can you learn to tie fabric knots? And she was just like, yeah, sure. I'm consistently baffled. Violet then asks Xaden about a rune stone that he keeps at his bedside. I haven't mentioned this prior because it only really becomes relevant right now, so you're finding out when you need to find out, as opposed to 50 pages earlier. Xaden says that that is a complicated one, because of course, nothing is, repeat after me, ever easy. Right, I'm gonna do my best to explain this, but to be honest, this is a bit complicated, so you're gonna have to get sharp on the noggin here. Xaden says that this particular rune was made by Colonel Mari, who is Liam, rest in peace, and Sloane's mother. Or I should say was, because much like the rest of the Mari family at this point, she is deceased. Colonel Mari was the last person who knew how to make this particular type of rune. And Xaden says that this rune was made to protect someone from his father's bloodline, as in Fen Ryerson of former failed rebellion fame. He says that during the rebellion, each of the children of the officers were given them before their parents left for the Battle of Orisha. So each of the children of, like, the top dogs in the rebellion, they were each given one of these special rune stones with this specific rune on that only Colonel Mari knew how to make. Right, we all keeping up, right. Xaden then says that this particular rune would only be activated when killed by dragonfire. To which Violet is like, which is the primary method of execution for traitors. I kept it closed in my fist. We all did, as we stood there, watching our parents be put into lines for execution. And the second they were burned,
Heat raced up my arm. The next time I felt anything like that was after threshing. The rebellion relics?
As far as I understand it at this point, and the Empyrean series girlies who know what's going on, you're gonna have to correct me if I've gotten confused here. But from my understanding, up until this point, we as readers were made to believe the rebellion relics that the children of the rebel leaders have, which are the reason why they are called the marked ones, were given to the children by General Melgren's dragon as a kind of marking, as a punishment of them being the children of rebel leaders, right? That's what I think we were told. However, Xaden's just flipped that on its head and said that actually those rebellion marks might be some kind of protective rune that was given to the children when their parents were executed as traitors.
Right.
So yeah, I'm not sure what we're supposed to do with that information, to be completely transparent with you, but that is information that you now have. He doesn't tell us why it's important or what this rune does, by the way. None of us know. For all I know, Liam's mum was just like, right, as a sorry for the fact that none of you have any parents anymore, I'm gonna give you a sick tattoo. Which, to be fair, I'd take it. Also, this is the second example of non-consensual tattooing in this book. Anyway, back to class. Professor Devara, who is an icon, is a legend, is the moment, starts basically telling off all the cadets for squabbling. She's like, listen here, babes, I am sick of the riders and the Griffin Flyers beefing. This has gone too far. So what does Professor Devara do to stop the girls, the guys, the gays, and the theys from bickering? If you guessed fight on the mats, you are correct. Yeah, solve everything with violence. That's how we do it in this book. Professor Devara basically says that for the next 6 hours, Griffin Flyers and Dragon Riders can challenge whoever they want to a one-on-one on the mats, but then after the 6 hours, the hostilities are done. Professor Devara said, if you want to talk the talk, you're going to have to walk the walk, babe. They also say that tomorrow Flyers will be absorbed into the squads of the Riders. That's right, we got Griffin Flyer, Dragon Rider squads before we got GTA 6. Diabolical. I'm giving absolutely no points to any of you who guess who challenges who to a fight in this next chapter, because the answer is yes, of course, it is Catriona challenging the Harlot of Orisha, Violet, Sovereign Gale. Honestly, at this point, these women are so obsessed with each other that I was hoping for a queer awakening. Just kiss already! So naturally, Cat challenges Violet to a fight and Violet goes, it's fine. Predictable, but fine. Girls, you are about to get pissed off. So you better prepare yourselves.
Holy shit, she fights like Xaden. He trained both of us.
Oh, it is icky. It is icky. I hate that, actually.
I thought that was just an us thing. What are you doing training other girls?
Okay, so envision this. The girls are fighting, mid-fighting, they're trash talking. I don't enjoy this trash talk though, and I usually love a trash talk. Don't enjoy this trash talk because it feels like the antithesis of feminist values, okay? This trash talk does not pass the Bechdel test, and that crosses a line for me.
Does it bother you knowing he taught me first? That I had him first?
Not at all, since I have him now. Oh, the next line is so icky. Okay.
Really? The thought that I know what he tastes like, how his weight feels above me.
Cat, babes, I'm gonna be honest, you need to chill out. Yeah, that was vile. Anyway, Kat, as her pierre de résistance, decides that she's going to use her mind work on Violet, right? Her little signet, but not signet because she's not a dragon rider. Her empath abilities, okay? She's going to use her empath abilities on Violet.
You seem angry, Violet. Are you now just realizing that you're nothing special? That you're just a convenient placeholder he can
Oh my god, Kat, this is vile, girl. Do they not teach you feminism in those classes?
I know how good he is. I'm the one who taught him the little trick he does with his fingers. You know, the one where he curls.
Violet cracks Kat's ribs. And then she punches her in the face. Suffice to say, Violet absolutely took the bait. And the emotional mind work thing did absolutely work. Anyway, I'll be honest, girls. Violet is seething. She's very, very angry. Yes, she is. And she's got Kat by the neck. And she is about to electrocute her. It's a good thing you didn't overreact, babe. At this point, Xaden appears and he mentally speaks to Violet and he says,
I honestly don't care if you kill her, Violence, but you will.
And like, on the one hand, very toxic thing for Mr. Xaden Ryerson to say. However, I kind of agree with him. I'll be honest, I wouldn't really care. Anyway, Xaden rocks up and he stops the match by manhandling Violet and carrying her out of the room. Mic drop for Zaddy. He then brings her into another room. And I'm going to be honest with you, what happens in this room is the only reason why most people read this book. He takes her into what I think is the equivalent of like a great hall. And this is where the council meet. There's a table. And one of the chairs around this table is essentially a throne. That's right. This is the infamous my house, my chair, my woman. Yeah, it's coming. A bit like Xaden Ryerson, but it's coming. Anyway, he sits Miss Très Petite Violet Sorrengail down on this throne. And as you can, of course, imagine, her feet do not touch the ground because she's so itsy bitsy spider. That's not an incredibly relevant detail, I'll be honest, but it's pretty much the only detail about this chapter that is not going to get me demonetized. So I'll read you some quotes because I know you want it.
This is what I fantasize about when I'm away from you. Your taste, your scent, the little gasps you make right before you.
That's right, they are banging on a throne. Yes, they are. That is so Twisted Games coded. Anyway, Violet is holding her conduit, that little orb that Felix gave her. And that means that this is the first time in this book that our girl reaches Nirvana and there's no lightning. Amazing work. You haven't publicly announced your orgasm to the whole of Orisha. No casualties today. Love that. Her not being able to set anything outside on fire is setting her loins on fire because not lightning striking is apparently making this whole ordeal so much more intense. So much so that it gets to the point where shimmering onyx wraps around my mind and everything intensifies. What could that be? That's right, we get shoved into a Xaden POV through the bond. A driving, pounding, uncontrollable need courses through me with every beat of my pulse, demanding I rip through the confines of the leather and trade her sweet taste for the incomparable perfection of sinking into her when she... Now, don't get me wrong. Very hot, good for Xaden Ryerson. But indulge me for a moment whilst I point out to you that this man, face deep in his beloved, right? And he's thinking the words incomparable perfection. Sorry, am I having sex with Shakespeare? What? Now, in my humble opinion, if I'm getting down and fruity with someone and their vocabulary is not reduced to grunts and completely unintellectual sounds and nonsense ramblings, I'm clearly not doing a good enough job. Do you know what I mean? It can't be that good if my guy is busted out the thesaurus. Anyway, turns out Xaden has let Violet into his mind so that she can see how obsessed with her he is and how much he loves her, which is all very sweet. But the way he reacts when he realizes that she's reading his thoughts is that it was like it was an accident. So I'm still not entirely sure what my guy was up to. I don't know if he just lost control because she was incomparably perfect, or if he just like tripped, slipped, and stumbled into her mind. Not sure what's going on. And much like Mira using her shields out of nowhere when Venin came when they were seeing Sakaras, the girlies did use this as an example of a potential second signet for Violet Sorrengail, and I will talk about this later. They do this weird POV swap telepathic situation. They do that and it's cute in its own little weird freaky way. And afterwards, when they're all done, Xaden is helping Violet do up her boots and he confesses that he never loved Kat. Drama, it's giving arranged marriage. So at this point, it's very explicitly said, in case you hadn't already worked it out, Xaden and Catriona were engaged to be wed. Yes, they were, because of course it wasn't enough for her just to be the ex-girlfriend. She had to in fact be the ex-fiancé. Excellent work, Rebecca Yaros. Wonderful. They explain that basically it was two aristocratic households trying to form an alliance. A powerful thing, because obviously he's like an heir or something. Not gonna lie, this did just make me feel quite bad for Kat, because she's doing all of this for a man that never even really liked her. Oh,
I thought you were going to kill her. I almost did. Would that have been unforgivable to you?
Hey, babe, would it have been unforgivable if I murked your ex-fiancé? Like, what are these conversations?
Nothing you could do would ever be unforgivable to me. And I don't particularly care if she lives, but I'm not cheering for her to die either. She's a necessary yet volatile ally. and Serena would be a disastrous enemy to make. But I do care that you would have regretted killing her. How could you ever love someone like her? I didn't. You are the first and only woman I've ever loved.
And then at this point, we finally get answers to our questions about the nobility of Xaden Ryerson, about his blood, why he's important. Who is he to be making these alliances, right? Turns out, he's technically the king of Tyrandor. Yeah. Because of course he is. To be honest, I kind of saw this coming because the minute we introduced a prince, actual royalty, to this story, and there was a hint at Violet having an ex, we knew that Xaden had to one-up them. Because one thing about Zadie Ryerson is that Rebecca Yarros does not want you to even consider the possibility that anyone else in this story could be a more suitable love interest than him. So anything that any character in this story does, including being a literal prince, Xaden has to one-up them. Yeah, he's the king. I'll be honest, this is one of my gripes about this book. Why does Xaden Ryerson have to be everything? You know, it is possible that this man is not something. You know, I genuinely believe if you have to hold the reader's hand this much to prove that he is that guy, he might not be that guy. Like, he doesn't have to be the leader of a rebellion, her mum's worst enemy, the son of the previous rebellion leader. He doesn't have to be the wing leader of the Fourth Wing. He doesn't have to be one of the most powerful riders of the century. He doesn't have to be the king of Tyrandor. It's okay to let other characters have characteristics that are favorable to readers that Xaden Ryerson doesn't have.
Wait, are you the king of Tyrandor?
No. I mean, yes, technically.
I'm the Duke of Orisha by birth, but Llewellyn's on our side and doing just fine at governing the province. Even if Tyrandor became independent, I'm more useful on the battlefield than a throne. We're off topic.
It seems that prior to this point, Violet wasn't entirely sure what this man was, which seems weird because Felix literally calls him like the heir. And so did she think that that was like just a little silly nickname, I guess? I don't know. Seems weird to me, Violet, that Violet, I really care about the Sorengale, didn't think to ask a question about that. And then she has an existential crisis that she might not be aristocratic enough to be dating him. And I'll be so honest, Violet, and I do say this with love. Could you possibly find any more reasons why you shouldn't be in a relationship with this man? Because all of this book at this point is just you saying we shouldn't be together because you don't tell me anything. We shouldn't be together because you're a rebel baddie. We shouldn't be together because you're a aristocrat. It's very bizarre. Like, what is she talking about? I'm gonna be so honest, Violet. I feel like you have bigger problems than your boyfriend maybe being an aristocrat. And I say that because at no point prior did we get any inkling that aristocratic blood and royalty was a problem for Miss Violet Sorengale. There's been no indication that hierarchy plays a significant role in who you're allowed to date in this world. And so this whole, I worry I'm not aristocratic enough and royal of blood enough for you, is crazy. It just feels like such a non-issue that we've just dragged up for literally no reason other than to cause yet more conflict in our main couple. Now, don't get me wrong, it's okay for a female main character to be insecure about something, but you're going to tell me that Violet, I never fail at anything ever Sorengale, is insecure about her nobility or lack thereof. I'm just not buying it. I don't think she knows insecurity, actually. This entire book series thus far has it been her stubbornly defiant in the face of expectation. Not once has she been insecure about a single damn thing, but this is where she's insecure. And I find this so ridiculous as a plot point when you find out who her ex is, okay? It doesn't make any sense. Short and short of it is Violet is having a crisis because she doesn't think she's important enough, royal of blood enough, aristocratic enough to be dating heir apparent Xaden Ryerson. Anyway, Xaden and Violet have a chat about how Kat's empath abilities only let her control and amplify what Violet already feels. Xaden is like, you need to calm down and stop being so insecure, basically, babes. That's on you, I guess. Skill issue. He tells her to find her center if she wants to control her emotions and her powers, since the two are connected.
You are a creature of logic and facts, and everything you know got turned upside down and shaken. You'll never know how truly sorry I am for that. But you can't just sit there and hope. You want it to change, then you'll have to figure it out. Just like the gauntlet. You're the only one who can.
Hi, Gaia.
Do you also think Violet's the only one who can?
That's a yes. She said, Violet, you are the chosen one, Soren Gale. Naturally, the very next day, Violet finds out that Kat's drift of Griffin Flyers has been combined with her squad. Why? Because this girl will never know peace. Yes, very good. Imogen, I hope you don't forget about Imogen, she says that the combination makes sense because Kat and Violet are both the strongest. It's given Gojo.
Welcome to 2nd Squad, Flame Section, 4th Wing, also known as Iron Squad.
And if you haven't worked out, she basically just describes the name of the book and the previous book in that one sentence. Welcome to 2nd Squad, book, Iron Squad, Flame Section in 4th Wing. Yeah, I see you, Rebecca. You are not slick. There is very little civility at this point between Kat and Violet, I'll be honest. But Violet does a big brain power play here because she goes directly up to Catriona and she thanks her for teaching Xaden the finger trick. Genius. She's a bloody genius. And then Violet's friends offer to kill Kat and bury the body. And that's so real of them. Afterwards, Violet goes to the library with Rhiannon, Riddick, Sawyer, and Sloane to find her, quote, center. I'll be honest, it is actually giving the Breakfast Club at this point. They get there, Sawyer goes off to flirt with Yesenia, very cute, and Violet continues working on the translation of Warwick's diary. She gets a breakthrough when Dane, remember Disdain Atos from book 1, but he's on his redemption arc now, so I'm sure we'll all love him by the end of the book. Dane comes through and says that he reckons one of the words that Violet has translated, she's translated wrong. Which, I'll be honest, is hilarious because I thought you didn't make mistakes, Violet. I thought the one thing you were really good at is books and translation in dead languages. And yet we've got Disdain Atos over here who hasn't read a book in 3 years. He's the one that catches it. It's not really given groomed to be head of the scribes. It's just given, I actually just think I'm the top student. Anyway, the word that Dane thinks Violet has mistranslated is the word rain. Remember when it was like the something something, well, something in an iron rain? Yeah, he's like, yeah, babes, I reckon you've done goofed. And this officially marks Dane back in the good books. Yes, it does. He has finally got the hint and we like him again now. At this point, Violet and Dane actually talk about what went down last year. Basic communication, something that is very rare in this book, apparently. And during this conversation, Dane apologizes for Liam's death, which, to be honest, least he could do. Violet is like, yeah, okay, very nice. Thank you. I appreciate that. Now, can you help me translate the rest of this journal? Oh, and also, can you help me imbue the Wardstone with power? Whatever the hell that means. Dane agrees, and dare I say it, things are starting to look good for our alleged best friends from childhood, Violet Sorengale and Dane Atos. That's right, Violet has finally caught a break. So a week passes, Violet's back training with Felix. At the end of Violet's training session with Felix, he says that you and Xaden need to get your booties over to a council meeting at 5. And she's like, yeah, but Xaden's not home, babe. He's on a scouting mission. And then she lowers her shields and she's like, wait, no, Xaden is home. In fact, he's home early. Suspicious. So she's like,
you're home early. Everything all right?
no.
He doesn't give any details, and his tone doesn't invite further questions. Is Sigale all right? I ask Tern as I walk up the forearm he's dipped for me.
She's unharmed.
Frustration and anger simmer, then quickly scald our bond, and I swiftly shield him out to keep from losing control over my own emotions.
So Violet goes back to Ryson House and she goes to the kitchen, gets some food, and then when she gets what she needs, she goes upstairs to the 2nd floor landing of Ryson House.
I start up the sweeping staircase and find Garrick, Bodhi, and Heaton.
Non-binary diva Heaton has appeared. Remember, I did famously say that Heaton was mentioned in like one chapter in 4th Wing and then was never heard from again. Turns out I'm as unreliable a narrator as Violet Sorengale because Heaton is alive and well and has in fact joined the revolution. Yes, very good, Heaton. I expected nothing less from our non-binary icon. Anyway, Garrick, Bodhi, and Heaton are on the second floor landing.
The look on Garrick's soot-covered face matches the ominous weight of Zayden's mood, and when Heaton turns their head, I nearly fumble the plate. The right side of their face is one giant contusion, and their right arm is splinted from elbow down. What happened? Garrick and Bodhi exchange a glance that makes my stomach sink, even knowing that Zayden is alive, and not in our bedroom on this floor, but 4 stories above me. They took Pavis, Heaton tells me quietly, looking to see that we're not overheard. I blink. That can't be right. That town is only an hour's flight east of Drathus. Heaton nods slowly. Took 7 of them and a horde of wyvern. Town was overrun before we even got there. Your sister, she's all right. Just taking Emery to the healers for a shattered leg. She ordered us out after... Their voice breaks, and they look away. After Nira Volderin fell during our mission today. Garrick finishes. Nira? She was the Quadrant's senior wing leader last year and was damn near invincible. She went in to defend a group of civilians that had taken shelter near the armory, and his jaw works, and there was nothing left of her, or Mala. It was just like Soleil and Foul, completely drained. I'm sure they'll update everyone in battle brief tomorrow, but they recalled all 1st and 2nd lieutenants to Arisha to regroup. I think they're going to change the wing structure. Heaton adds, they have to. Garrick agrees. Leaving the less experienced riders back from the front doesn't do a damn thing when the front is this fucking fluid. Did they take Corden? Garrick shakes his head. Skipped right over it and hundreds of other miles. They targeted Pavis and stayed there. It's a good staging point. Bodhi drops his voice when a trio of flyers out of the first wing walk by. For Drathus, it has to be. They're coming for us.
Okay, so naturally at this point, the girls are panicking. Things are not going well. Venin, they are coming. They are coming. They know that the gang's at Arisha and they said we want a slice of that pie. You've got no wards. We're coming for you. Immediately after this, we get Violet talking to Zayden and things are looking bleak. They are. Things are not great. But lucky for us, she has brought Zayden a chocolate cake. Very nice. It's his favourite. Sure, the end of the world is nigh, but everything's better with some refined sugars. That's right, we had one chapter where Violet almost caught a break, and then the next chapter we are immediately right back with her getting punched repeatedly in the spirit. You've got to kind of imagine this chapter like he's gone through a messy breakup or something in a rom-com, and he's just like rotting on a sofa with a pint of Ben & Jerry's, except this time it's a chocolate cake, and he's rotting over the fact that everyone he loves is going to die. So the stakes are pretty similar. We find out that Mira essentially saved Zayden's life in the Battle of Pavis because she ordered him off the field. She ordered me. I had killed one of them and was retrieving my dagger. Another problem, I might add, when the second one channeled right behind Sigale. If she'd launched a second later, this cake would have gone to waste. He sets the fork down. My heart starts to pound erratically. There's not a mark on him, and yet I'd almost lost him without knowing he'd been that close to never coming home again. The thought is so unfathomable that I'm stunned silent. She swept me up in a claw, but your sister saw what happened, and that's when she called it a loss. Not because Nira died, or the 3 flyers from the Footwing Drift, or because we only had 5 dragons left. He shakes his head. She called it because I was with them and she wouldn't risk you. Is that what she told you? The first flakes of snow descend. She didn't have to tell me. It was pretty fucking obvious. Then you don't know. I do, he counters, and then immediately closes his eyes. I know. And the anger and the horror of watching all those civilians flee, watching them die, I realized she treated me like every marked one has treated you since threshing, like you're just a vulnerable extension of me. I don't think anyone would ever mistake you for vulnerable. I reach for his hand and lace our fingers. But yes, he finds my gaze and closes his hand around mine. I'm sorry, thank you, but as annoying as it is, I get it. We're tethered. I shrug. He kisses me. Quiet, hard, and quick for the rest of our lives. So we find out that Mira saves Zayden not because she cares about Zayden at all, which, I'll be honest, Mira, at this point you might be the exception to the rule. He is, after all, a king, a leader of a rebellion, a wing leader, the son of the previous rebellion leader. He's becoming pretty hard not to care about, but she wants him to live because if Zayden dies, Sigale dies, and if Sigale dies, Taryn dies, and if Taryn dies, Violet famously also dies. So she was not willing to risk the life of her sister. So she orders Zayden off the field and orders a retreat because she does not want Violet to die. So fair enough. Things are getting rough. During this conversation between Violet and Zayden, we also find out that Zayden's main worry is that they're outmatched and spread too thin. There's no plan except hold the line. and the line isn't holding. So with the impending threat of death for literally every character in the book, Violet and Dane go back to translating the journal. And it's at this moment that Violet realizes that the word rain was not the only thing she mistranslated. That's right, Miss I Never Make a Mistake Sorringale has again made a mistake.
The library is comfortably quiet as I pore over the next entry, translating it into what we call our draft journal. The air has grown cold enough, I say out loud as I write the words into the draft journal, to see my blood in the mornings. I blink, then stare at the symbol for blood. My mind spins at the possibility, and then I turn back to the earlier entries just to be sure. Every single time we translated the symbol blood, the word breath fits better. We have the wrong word. The blood of life is actually the breath of life, and the setting the stone ablaze in an iron flame. I close the journals and sit back in my chair. The 6 doesn't refer to writers. They're dragons, I say out loud in the empty library. Dane, I should tell... No. He'll act only on the rules, not taking the ethics into account. There's one person I trust to always do the right thing. I stuff my things into my pack, sling it over my shoulders, and race out the library, then climb 4 flights of stairs. My heart races as I knock on Rhiannon's door. Hey, she says when she opens the door, her bright smile faltering when I don't return it. I need to tell you something. All right? Stopping suddenly in the middle of the room, I turn toward her. I know how to raise the wards. I'm just not entirely sure we should.
That's right, girls. Miss Violet Sorringale has figured out how to raise the wards. Unfortunately, she's now having an ethical dilemma about it. Right, yeah, of course she is. In case you missed that, Violet has been mistranslating the word breath as the word blood and the word rain as the word flame. So she's been having a mare. Easy mistake, I guess. But after all that, we've now got a new problem, of course, because nothing is ever easy. Yes, correct. At this point, we have no idea what Violet and Rhiannon talked about because the next chapter cuts to a studying session. Yeah, these people are still studying. Yeah, the Venin are only 4 hours away, but by all means, get your algebra homework in, babe. During this little study session, Violet asks Arik, Prince Arik, of royalty fame,
any chance you speak Old Lusurish? I ask Arik at the end of the table. His tutoring would only be second to mine, considering Markham was my mentor. I'd feel better if someone else quadruple checked the translation, someone other than rule-following Dane, but I'm pretty sure we have it. Otherwise, why would we be here? Absolutely not. He shakes his head and focuses on his new ink pen, his forehead lined with concentration. All of our first years are channeling, and though they have yet to manifest signets, they have a bet going about who will be able to master the lesser magic needed to work the writing implement first. Pretty sure Kai, the lone first-year flyer without Luella, is going to beat them all. He's currently on the couch between a couple of first years, his spiky black hair bobbing, a dimple forming in his bronze cheek as he laughs at whatever story Bragan, the drift leader and our new XO, is currently telling. Other than Marin, Bragan is easiest of the flyers to get along with. He also spends a lot of time shooting longing looks Cat's way. Why would Arik speak Old Lusurish? Vicia asks from the opposite end of the table, looking up from her physics homework. Aren't you from Chaldeer? My face freezes. I need to be more careful. Yep. Arik looks at me, his features a perfect polished mask. You have me confused with Lynx. He's from Lucerys. Right, of course. I nod, thankful for his quick cover. At some point, you're going to have to actually get to know the first years. They're people now, Riddick teases, his smile tight. He agrees with us about what we're about to do, but he's understandably worried about the flyers' reactions. Can't blame her, Imogen says, carrying a mug out of the kitchen with Marin following close behind. We added 6 first years and 6 flyers to the squad in the last 6 weeks.
666? That's the devil's number.
We've been in the squad since July, Vicia argues. You didn't count before threshing. Imogen shrugs, glancing across the room. Guess I'll go save Quinn from Cat.
No blood on my sister's floor.
Rhiannon shoots her a look that says she means it.
Basically, it's at this point that Violet decides to tell everyone in the little studying group that they're about to raise the wards. And to be honest, the girls are not taking it well.
I take a steadying breath. I've been translating Warwick's journal, one of the first 6 who built Basgiath's wards, I clarify, just in case they're not familiar with our history, in the hopes that we can get the wards up in Orisha before the approaching Wyvern decide we're the next target. And I think I know how to do it. But that's why we wanted to talk to you, because it will mean you flyers won't be able to wield. The flyers stare, stunned. Even Kat's eyes flare wide with what almost looks like fear. We know 2 other Parmish towns have fallen in the last 2 weeks, leaving Drathis vulnerable, and the Assembly wants the wards up and functional now. Rhiannon continues, which we think you deserve to know. Know what? Kat stands, her chair screeching against the hardwood floor. That you're about to kill our ability to channel. Our griffins are still struggling to adjust to the altitude, and now you're going to make us powerless. Protective wards were our goal long before you came here. Imogen pushes off the wall and casually sets her hand on her hip, near her favorite dagger, angling her body towards Kat, and Quinn sidesteps to flank the angry flyer. But we're here now, Kat retorts. If my uncle had known you would tie a hand behind our back, he never would have made that deal. Control yourself, Kat. Bragan keeps his tone level, but his brown eyes are sharp as he stands, putting his left arm out to block Kat from advancing on us. How long until they're up? He asks me. As soon as I tell the Assembly what I found. As of this morning, the stone has a distinct hum, a vibration in that chamber that reminds me of the way Zayden described the armory at Samara, housing the alloy-hilted daggers. And when are you going to do that? Kat snaps. If you weren't here, it would be done already, I retort in the same tone she's giving. But you are here. You do matter. How long are you giving us? Bragan asks me. I won't lie to Zayden. The moment he's home, I'll have to tell him, I admit. Multiple curses ripple through the flyers. But I'll also tell him that I think we should hold off as long as possible to give you a chance to decide if you want to stay, knowing you won't be able to channel. And you honestly think he'll listen to you? Kat's hands curl at her sides. The good, the bad, the unforgivable. That's what he said to me when he said he put my safety above the best interests of the movement, and he may want them wards up because I'm here and he isn't. But he also has a province to think of. No. I shake my head slowly. I think he'll act in the best interest of Tyrandor. I leave myself out the equation and want them up as soon as possible, but I can still try. We are no good to our people if we can't channel, Marin says, looking past Arik to the window, drumming her fingers on the table. Yeah, well, you're no good to them if you're dead either. And by not raising those wards right now, we're exposing all of Orisha, the riots, the drifts, hell, all of Tyrandor beyond Navarre's wards to danger that's no longer necessary. So you'd better decide if you're willing to stay, knowing that it can happen at any moment, or if you're better off taking shelter in Cordon, where you'll have power and dark wielders, Imogen says. I don't envy them the choice, but at least we gave it to them. And if you stay, we won't leave you powerless. Turns out alloy isn't the only thing we can imbue. I take out the 6 conduits Felix gave me yesterday after I trusted him with the truth, each containing an arrowhead like the ones I've been imbuing for weeks now. What's in that? Bragan asks, 2 lines etched between his brows. The kind of ore we don't use to make the alloy. It's not quite as rare as palladium, but it's about 10 times as explosive. Trust me, I've seen this stuff blow sky high raw, let alone imbued. I glance at Sloane, who slowly smiles before she responds. Okay, so what have we learned? A little recap. Violet knows how to raise the wards, and she's kept it a secret because she's got an ethical dilemma. Ethical dilemma being, if she raises the wards, none of the flyers, the griffin flyers, can channel their power anymore. They don't work with their griffins inside of wards, which, to be honest, it is making them sound a little bit pathetic. I don't know how they were ever considered to be a danger to the dragon riders, because, like, they're getting KO'd every single time. It's just L after L after L for these griffin flyers. So Violet, instead of telling the Assembly straight away that she knows how to raise the wards, tells the head griffin flyers, the most important ones, so that they have the time to decide and tell their people whether or not they want to stay. She's given them a choice, which we love. Consent is key. Then this chapter kind of cuts to a dream. Random, I know, but bear with me. So our girl Violet is in Orisha. She's still there, but this time she's dreaming. So it's basically the exact same dream as before. She's suspended in a sunburned field by the sage. She can't reach 10 this time. He's elsewhere. And she says, I recognize the scenario for what it is now. A reoccurring nightmare. And yet I'm still powerless, still too slow to reach Tern, still can't force my consciousness to snap me awake. I grow weary of this. Now wield, the sage whispers, his robes purple tonight. Rip free. Show me the power you use to slay our forces above the trading post. Prove me right that you are a weapon worth watching, worth retrieving. His hand hovers over mine, but he doesn't touch me. The one who watched thinks you'll never yield, that we should kill you before you grow into your full abilities. I don't know what accent this is, by the way, sorry. I've just gone for like evil cave dweller. My stomach turns, my mouth watering with nausea as the bony hand drifts upwards, pausing at my neck. Usually jealousy sways the tongue of young wielders. wielders. He drags a single long fingernail down my throat, exposing an expanse of 10 arm under his robes, and I twitch, fear accelerating my heartbeat.
This is interesting, by the way, because now we know that the venin uses sunbeds. I'm kidding, it's a silly little tee-hee ha-ha. But this is the first clue we get as to knowing who the sage's identity potentially is, even if this is a dream. Because it's a weird thing for Violet to imagine.
The rest turn for power, he whispers, coming so close I can smell a hint of something sweet on his breath. But you will turn for something much more dangerous, much more volatile. He wraps his hand around my throat loosely. You will. His dark, eyelashless eyes narrow and jagged fingernails slice into my skin with all too real bite of pain. You'll tear down the wards yourself when the time comes. And you won't do it for something as trite as power or as easily satiable as greed, but for the most illogical of mortal emotions. Love, or you'll die. You both will. He flicks his wrists, and a bone-jarring crack tears me from my sleep. I jolt upright in bed, reaching for my throat and gulping lungful after lungful of air, but there's no cut, no ache, and when I turn the mage light on with lesser magic and twist my hand, I see there's no blood either. Of course there isn't. I whisper aloud, the raw sound cutting through the silence of my bedroom as the first hints of sunlight lighten the sky to purple beyond my window. It's just nightmare. There's nothing that can touch me here. Xaden asleep beside me.
Stop talking to yourself.
Taryn grumbles, as though I've woken him.
It makes us both seem unstable.
Do you see my dreams?
I have better things to do than monitor the machinations of your subconscious mind. If a dream bothers you, then leave it. Stop allowing yourself to be tortured like a hatchling and wake yourself like an adult.
He cuts the conversation before I can tell him that human dreams don't always work like that, and the bond dims, a sign that he's already gone back to sleep. So I lie back down, curling my body around Xaden's, and his arms wrap around my back and pulls me closer like it's a reflex. Like this is the way we'll sleep for the next 50 years. I settle in against his warmth and lay my head on his chest, above the most comforting rhythm in the world, beside Taryn's and Indarna's wing beats, Xaden's heart.
Now, something I would like to draw your attention to is 1, Chief Venin saying that Violet will turn for love. Suspicious. Second thing I would like to draw your attention to, something more concrete, dare I say, than the whims of a dream, is when Taryn tells Violet that he doesn't bother monitoring her dreams. I don't know how truthful our dragon daddy is being right now. Why, you may ask? Well, as the scholars of Fourth Wing will recall, in chapter 18 of Fourth Wing, when Violet's about to be murked by the unbonded riders in the quadrant after the threshing, you know, when she bonded with 2 dragons and they didn't even get 1. Someone starts screaming in her dream for her to wake up. And who was that, you might ask? That would be Indarna and Terninarch. Our man was definitely monitoring her dreams in the past, which means either he's lying or something changed where he now feels the need to block his connection to Violet when he or she is asleep. Wonder what that could be. So yeah, short and short of it is Violet's had another nightmare, but fortunately for us, recurring nightmares are never used to foreshadow things in books, so I guess we're fine.
Hi, now I know what you're thinking. Ellbat, why do you look like that? Where's the rest of the part 2 recap? Listen, sometimes in life, we film videos, you know, we've all been there, and those videos end up being so much longer than you thought reasonable. And in those times, decisions, hard decisions, have to be made. And thus, I have decided to split Iron Flame Part 2 into 2 parts. I know, stop booing me. Can you see this timeline? This is the current part 2 of Iron Flame Part 2. It is 8 hours long in raw footage. That means that it will probably be 5 hours long, not including the video you have just watched. So I've made an executive decision, which is that I am gonna have to split this up into 2 parts. You can boo all you like, but the truth is, this is on Rebecca, okay? This is not on me. That book is too long, okay? I'm not about to upload an 8-hour YouTube video. I'm just not gonna do it. After reading everyone's comments on part 1, I do just think that maybe a 5-hour video is too long. So I have decided to split this into 2 parts, just just so that everyone can have a better viewing experience, and also mainly so me and editor Tio don't cry ourselves to sleep every night, because it's been hard. Now, I know the main reason some of you will be panicking hearing this is because part 2 took months to come out after part 1. However, you don't have to worry about that this time, because we are already finishing part 3, so you will get it next week, as opposed to waiting another 3 to 4 business months. You'll get that ASAP, okay? It's all been filmed, it's all done. We're just tidying up the edit on it because it's just too long. I can't in good conscience put out another 5-hour YouTube video. I don't think that people want that. I don't know if I want that. We're gonna do Iron Flame part 1, part 2, part 3, even though the book is split into 2 parts, and I know that that's gonna upset some people, and I'm sorry, but like, please, I'm losing my mind. Stop booing me. Put your pitchforks down. Thank you if you made it to the end of this part, and I'm sorry to kind of tease you in this way. I know you thought you were getting the whole thing, but just like Zayd and Ryerson, you are going to be blue-balled. If you did enjoy the video, please remember to like, share, subscribe, talk to everyone about it. Go into every room, and the first thing you should say is, have you seen Ellbat's new Iron Flame recap? And they should say yes, obviously, because they've already seen it. Thank you so much to Surfshark for sponsoring part of today's video. Click the link in the description down below if you want to check them out. When you support my sponsors, it does help to support me and allows me to keep making exceedingly, excessively long, unhinged recaps of all your favourite books. So, thank you very much. Okay, see you in like a week or so. I'm not going to give you an exact date because I never stick to them and then you get upset with me. Bye!